Chapter 3562. Hey, someone's here, Meng Xiaoqi said. He could have just left and not bothered with Chu Li, who was disguised as Bailey Na. If it was any other time, he would not be bothered. However, he had just suffered a setback and was not in a good mood. Seeing Bailey Na being so presumptuous and disregarding him, he was instantly infuriated. His expression was terrible, and he wanted to vent his anger. As a top-notch master, he was usually unrestrained and would do whatever he wanted. He had no qualms about killing people, as if killing was a trivial matter. Especially in a barren mountain like this, it was not a big deal to just kill this old man. Chu Li sighed lazily and shook his head. Is this your mountain? No, Meng Xiaoqi said. Chu Li smiled. Isn't that right? This is not your territory, so it's ownerless land. What's wrong with me sitting here? Moreover, there are countless mountains here. If you think I'm an eyesore, you can just find another place. You can find another place? Meng Xiaoqi scoffed. I came here first and you're the one who came later. Get lost. Don't make me angry and kill you. Ha ha! Chu Li laughed. What an overbearing fellow. You want to kill me? Come on, let's see if you can kill me. Which sect are you from? Meng Xiaoqi said coldly. I'm Bailey Na from the Longevity Church. Who are you? Chu Li scoffed. Meng Xiaoqi said, You don't have to know. He was slightly shocked. He had heard of the Longevity Church. Especially recently, they had some conflicts with Chu Li. The church leader, Song Jifan, had always wanted to cause trouble for Chu Li. However, after he was defeated by Chu Li, there were no more movements. As the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall, he had been paying attention to Chu Li's news. He was very clear about the sudden appearance of the Longevity Church. He also knew how powerful the Longevity Church was and that Song Wuji could not provoke them. When Chu Li saw the change in his expression, he knew that he was afraid of the Changshan Church. To those who knew the truth, the Changshan Church was a very strong deterrent. Chu Li immediately threw his head back and laughed. How is it? Are you afraid now? You cowardly scoundrel, scram! Meng Xiaoqi's eyes gleamed coldly. Chu Li's words reminded him that his face was covered and he could not see his face at all. Moreover, he did not give his name, so even if he killed the old man, he would not know who killed him. Moreover, he might not even know if the old man was dead or alive. Such a desolate mountain was the perfect place to commit murder and arson. Thinking of this, he suddenly slashed down with his saber. He was too lazy to talk nonsense and make himself feel angry. The pitch-black long blade disappeared in a flash and appeared on Chu Li's forehead in the next moment. The long sword at Chu Li's waist flashed at an incredible speed. At the same time, he used the scabbard to block the blade. Now that his strength had increased by 3 times, the speed of his sword was beyond imagination. Meng Xiaoqi had never thought that there would be such a fast sword. At the same time, a strange force came from the scabbard, causing him to pause. Meng Xiaoqi groaned as his left arm fell to the ground. Ha ha! Chu Li laughed out loud and shook his head. That's all there is to it. I'm leaving. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left like a shooting star. Meng Xiaoqi gritted his teeth and glared angrily, feeling extremely aggrieved. He did not have the time to break his heavenly seal. He did not even have the time to fully unleash the demonic blade technique before he was ambushed by this sword. He sheathed the long blade and waved his right hand. His left arm that had fallen to the ground immediately flew into his right hand. He gently closed his left arm and pressed the wound together accurately. Then, he activated his heart technique. Suddenly, a dark brilliance flowed around the wound. After a while, he let go of his right hand. There was only a neat wound left on his left arm. It had already scabbed over. The muscles had already regenerated and the bones had reconnected. This was the wonder of the demonic blade technique. However, it had its limitations. If the left arm was shattered, the demonic blade technique would be useless. It would not be able to regenerate a severed limb. It was still inferior to Azura. He took a deep breath and his eyes suddenly changed. The white of his eyes disappeared and his eyes became completely black. His pitch-black eyes looked in the direction where Chu-Li disappeared. It seemed that he was constantly watching. Then, he locked onto a direction and disappeared in a flash. In the next moment, he appeared 1,000 feet away. In another flash, he disappeared again. He had completely disappeared under the moonlight. Chu-Li was like a gust of wind. Under the moonlight, he was like a ghost, heading toward the floating mountain. His original position was not far from the floating mountain. After an hour, he had already reached the foot of the floating mountain. He also saw Meng Xiaoqi chasing behind him. Chu-Li looked up to the sky and laughed. "How dare you chase us all the way to our floating mountain?" So what if it's the floating mountain? Meng Xiaoqi relied on the fact that he was wrapped in black clothes. No one could see his face clearly. He spoke without restraint. He planned to kill Chu-Li before the people from the floating mountain came. After he said that, without waiting for Chu-Li to speak, he suddenly flashed again. This time, he was faster. However, because he was guarding against Chu-Li's sword, he had some misgivings and was not resolute enough. Chu-Li's long sword was unsheathed and slashed at his left arm. Meng Xiaoqi sneered and turned sideways. At the same time, he slashed at Chu-Li's left arm. He wanted to give Chu-Li a taste of his own medicine. The speed of the black blade suddenly became extremely fast. It was a charged attack. Chu-Li's left palm struck out. The sword in his right hand suddenly sped up and was even faster than Meng Xiaoqi's blade. He suddenly used the sacrificial divine power. With 10 times the power and his tyrannical strength, this sword was strangely fast. Meng Xiaoqi still could not avoid it. Pa! The left arm fell to the ground again. Chu-Li laughed and turned to leave. In the blink of an eye, he jumped into the valley and into the floating mountain. Ah! Meng Xiaoqi looked up and roared. After he returned the blade to its sheath, he waved his right hand and caught his left arm again. He pressed it on his left shoulder. Black light flowed and he quickly connected it again. However, he had a solemn expression. The location of the injury was the same. It was as if he had measured it with a ruler. Although he used the demonic blade technique to connect it, it was not completely healed. He needed some time to recuperate. There seemed to be no difference on the surface. He could still exert force and swing it, but it was a little weaker. This time, he was injured again. It would take longer for him to completely recover. Moreover, he could not use too much force in his left arm. His martial arts had imperceptibly weakened. Did he have to break the celestial seal to deal with a nobody and reduce his time in this world? He raised his head and looked at the void. It was the direction of the floating mountain. He could sense the location of the floating mountain with his celestial being and the void. However, he could not get onto the floating mountain. He gritted his teeth. He was not willing to fall into the hands of such a nobody. He wanted revenge. Thus, he decided to hide at the side. If the disciples of the floating mountain came out, he must take care of a few of them to vent his anger. Chu-Li had already entered the floating mountain. He went straight to the Basilica of the Heavens Punishment Hall and came before Elder Fong. Elder Fong was leaning on the spirit tiger. She was dressed in a dark green gown. She looked at him lazily. She was languid and charming. Her eyes were mesmerizing. He stood in front of the spirit tiger. He did not feel as tired as before. He had seen the spiritual energy of a real spirit tiger. The spiritual energy of the Heavens Punishment Hall was negligible. "Why are you back?" Elder Fong asked lazily. Chu-Li said, "Elder, I heard some important news." "Say it." Elder Fong opened her red lips and spat out 2 words. Chu-Li hurriedly said, "Chu-Li might be heavily injured." Elder Fong frowned. Chu-Li said, "This is information from one of my informants, the most important informant. I think this is a rare opportunity. Chapter 3563. Elder Fong chuckled and shook her head. A mole? It's hard to say if it's a trap. Chu Li nodded helplessly. This Chu Li is too cunning, and he's the chief of Glory's Will courtyard. He specializes in anti-mole. I really don't know if he's aware of my mole, but I think we can find out if we try. How do we try? Elder Fong's charming eyes glanced at him. Chu Li said, send 2 elders to the High Duke's public house to try. If Chu Li doesn't show up, it means he's really injured. It's a good chance for the bishop. The bishop is now in isolated cultivation. As long as he comes out, it doesn't matter if Chu Li is injured or not, Elder Fong said. Chu Li was surprised. The bishop's divine technique is that powerful? As long as the bishop can come out, the rise of the Longevity Church will be unstoppable. Elder Fong waved her hand. You look travel-worn. Go and rest. Yes. Chu Li nodded. He suddenly stopped when he turned around. Oh right, Elder, there's a guy at the foot of the floating mountain. I heard he's from the ancient demonic blade sect. He chased me all the way here. Ancient demonic blade sect. Elder Fong squinted her long and narrow eyes. I'd like to take a look. Go ahead. Chu Li closed fist saluted and walked out of the basilica. Elder Fong stood up and walked with her hands behind her back. She paced in front of the spirit tiger and recalled the information about the demonic blade sect. As an ancient sect, the Longevity Church had many records of other sections. The demonic blade sect was one of them, but it was not a big sect. It was just an inconspicuous small sect. However, the characteristic of ancient sects was that hundreds of schools existed side by side. Not a single small sect could be underestimated. It was possible for a genius to rise up, suppress the masses, and become famous throughout the world. No matter how weak the sect was, it was still possible for them to produce a Tao. The 11 people suddenly flashed, disappearing from the floating mountain, and in the next moment, appearing on another mountain peak. Lu Daguang, come with me. The rest of you wait here. Only go when I call for you. Don't move unless I call for you. Elder Fong turned her head and glanced at the rest of the elders. Yes, don't worry, Elder. We won't move. The elders nodded. Elder Fong waved her lily-white hand and floated towards the entrance of the mountain peak with Lu Daguang. Soon, they reached the peak. Come out. Elder Fong suddenly stopped and turned to look at a huge rock. Meng Xiaoqi's black robe covered his entire body, revealing only his cold eyes. He stared at Elder Fong and Lu Daguang and said in a deep voice, Disciples of the Changshan denomination? That's right. Who are you? Elder Fong scoffed. Elder Fong was proficient in the art of concealment. She hid her cultivation very well, which was also what the Changshan denomination was good at. Meng Xiaoqi did not notice it for a moment. He was shocked by Elder Fong's beauty and his mind was distracted. Seeing Elder Fong walking in front and Lu Daguang following behind, he thought that Elder Fong was the daughter of some important person. Meng Xiaoqi snorted, Is there a Bailey Na in your Changshan sect? Bailey Na, of course. Elder Fong said, Are you looking for him? That's right. Meng Xiaoqi said slowly, Can you call him out? He will come out? Elder Fong chuckled. She felt that this guy was a little silly. He was obviously chasing after them, but he still thought that Bailey Na would come out to die. Bailey Na was a sly old fox. How could he fall for such a trick? Meng Xiaoqi frowned at her, feeling the irony. He said in a deep voice, Do you know who I am? You're from the demonic blade sect, right? Elder Fong shook her head and chuckled. Since when did the demonic blade sect have an heir? How strange. The demonic blade sect has reopened its mountain gate and is recruiting disciples. We will rise again. Meng Xiaoqi scoffed. I am Meng Jing of the demonic blade sect. Then why are you here at the Changshan denomination? Elder Fong said, Are you here to kill the disciples of the Changshan denomination? That's right. Meng Xiaoqi knew that he could not back down now. Otherwise, the demonic blade sect would never be able to raise its head in front of the Chongqing denomination. He could tell that Elder Fong was looking down on the demonic blade sect. He was furious. Since the Chongqing denomination was looking down on the demonic blade sect, today would be the day that the demonic blade sect became famous. After killing the Chongqing denomination, the world would know how powerful the demonic blade sect was. As for Song Jifan, the bishop of the Chongqing denomination, fortunately, he had not matured yet. You're looking down on the floating mountain by killing the disciples of the Chongqing denomination. Elder Fong sneered. Meng Xiaoqi sneered. So what if it's the Chongqing denomination? The demonic blade sect is not bad either. Hee hee. Elder Fong laughed. Her voice was like a silver bell ringing in the air. Meng Xiaoqi's face under the black cloth was extremely gloomy. His eyes glowed as he slowly pulled out his long blade. The blade was as black as ink. It seems like you want to experience our demonic blade technique. Lu Daguang stepped forward and stood in front of Elder Fong. He said in a deep voice, "Elder, I'll do it. Be careful." Elder Fong did not want to waste her breath on Meng Xiaoqi. She would just beat him up and run away. "Young lad, you must be tired of living to behave atrociously in our floating mountain. Die." Lu Daguang sneered and lightly struck with his left palm. His palm, which was as white jade, was dyed red as if it had been dyed with cinnabar. Meng Xiaoqi sneered. The black blade flashed and hit Lu Daguang's left wrist. Lu Daguang groaned. His eyes were bloodshot. He did not care about his falling palm. He struck with his right palm as fast as lightning. Bam! His right palm hit the black blade. Lu Daguang's expression changed. He felt a strange force entering his body. It instantly broke through his protective vigor and entered his organs. The blood in his body was stirring, and he was about to lose control. Elder Fong suddenly appeared behind Meng Xiaoqi in a flash, and her exquisite little hand hit his back. Chapter 3565. It's you. Meng Xiaoqi's eyes lit up and he suddenly laughed. Great, I was just about to look for you. Since you've come to me, just in time. He swung his blade and in a flash of black light, he appeared in front of Chu Li. He gave up on Elder Fong, who had become a beautiful middle-aged woman. He wanted to kill Chu Li, who was disguised as Bailey Na. He had been too aggrieved by Bailey Na. He had killed many people but could not vent his anger. Only by killing would he feel satisfied. Otherwise, he would always think of the knot in his heart and it would be very unpleasant. Chu Li roared. A ray of light fell from the sky and condensed into a bright palm print to meet the black blade. Bam! The black blade was shaken off. Huh! Meng Xiaoqi looked at him in surprise. He did not expect Chu Li to have such a high cultivation level. Chu Li's body shrunk and flew backward. Elder Fong and the others knew that he had used the sacrificial technique. It was even the 10th level. He fought with his life on the line. He shouted in the air, Elder Fong, you guys leave first. Elder Fong said, Be careful of his blade. I know. Chu Li laughed. I was chased by him back then and had a taste of his blade. It's nothing. Hee, it's nothing. Again. Meng Xiaoqi sneered and swung his black blade. Bam! Chu Li's heavenly king palm condensed again and hit the black blade. This time, the black blade only paused for a moment before continuing. When Chu Li attacked with his left palm, his right palm followed. The second heavenly king palm had hit the black blade. Bam! The black blade paused again. Chu Li's third heavenly king palm had landed. Bam 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 bam! His inner energy seemed to be endless. Heavenly king palm after heavenly king palm shocked Elder Fong and the other 5 people. They knew about the heavenly king palm. They knew that one strike of the heavenly king palm could consume half of one's inner energy. 2 strikes was already rare and 4 strikes was the limit. However, looking at Chu Li, one strike after another, it seemed like his inner energy was endless. They watched Chu Li fight with his life on the line. If this went on, he would not be able to withstand more than a few strikes. He would be powerless and vulnerable. Leave! Chu Li shouted. Elder Fong was touched. She glanced at the remaining 5 people and said, "You guys leave first." "Elder, let's not leave. At most, we can accompany each other." The remaining 5 men shook their heads. They were infected by Chu Li's madness, and were about to attack but were stopped by Elder Fong. "Don't cause trouble." They had no choice but to stop and watch helplessly as Chu Li unleashed one heavenly king palm after another, forcefully trapping the black blade. The black knife suddenly flashed and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. They cried out in alarm. The next moment, the long blade slashed across Chu Li's chest. Chu Li punched with his left fist. Chu Li's long knife flipped and chopped lightly. Chu Li's left hand fell silently. He snorted angrily and continued to attack. Even with the manifestation of nature restoration and the heavenly star void insight art, which allowed him to vaguely sense the momentum of the saber, he was still unable to block it. The cultivation of the celestial realm was truly astonishing. He was no match for the other party, and there was no way he could win. "All right," Meng Xiaoqi snorted. Normally, he would have killed Chu Li a long time ago. However, seeing how desperate Chu Li was, he was not in a hurry to kill him. He only wanted to see how long Chu Li could last. He wanted to tire Chu Li to death. He was only thinking about how to be happy, because after the Devis undid the seal, he would be sealed again in 2 hours. 20 years of being in the world had already been wasted, so if he didn't properly torture his opponent, how could he not be satisfied? Chu Li's left wrist had already stopped bleeding. He cursed loudly. "What bullsh *T demonic blade sect, they're such bullies! How did I bully you?" Meng Xiaoqi laughed. "You're not human at all." Chu Li scoffed. "I may not have seen much, but I know that the light on your body isn't normal." Elder Fong said coldly, "Are you not afraid of being punished by the heavenly rules for the descent of a celestial?" "Haha, you know quite a lot." Unfortunately, Meng Xiaoqi shook his head and said, "You don't have to worry about this. You're going to die anyway." Chu Li said, "Let's go to the Grandmaster's boundary and complain." "Haha, how naive." Meng Xiaoqi laughed and said, "Do you think you can enter the heavens beyond heaven if you die? We're Grandmasters, we'll naturally enter the heavens beyond heaven if we die." Chu Li scoffed. As he spoke, his right hand kept striking, heavenly king palm after heavenly king palm, but it had already started to weaken. His momentum was gradually weakening, he could not hold on for much longer. "Haha, if you die under the demonic blade, you won't have the chance to enter the Grandmaster's boundary." "I'm so sorry, haha." Meng Xiaoqi laughed proudly. Chu Li's face darkened. "Your demonic blade can devour souls? Yes, you're very smart, Bailey Na. Unfortunately, smart people don't live long, die." The black blade suddenly lit up, and a black light burst out, as if it devoured all the light around it. A black hole appeared, and the black hole shrouded Chu Li. "Humph, how arrogant!" Suddenly, a loud shout exploded in everyone's ears. Elder Fong was overjoyed, and cried out involuntarily, "Bishop!" Song Jifan suddenly stepped out of the void, and lightly struck out a fist. Bang! In the thunderous explosion, the black hole dissipated and the black blade appeared. Meng Xiaoqi frowned as he looked at Song Jifan. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief, and wanted to retreat, but he suddenly staggered and fell limply on the ground, unable to move. It was as if his bones had been removed, and he lay there like a pile of mud. Elder Fong was overjoyed. "Bishop, be careful, this is a celestial." Song Jifan stood in the void with his hands behind his back, and scoffed. "This is not the place for you to show off, it's better for you to ascend to heaven. Your surname is Song, so you must be a descendant of Song Wuji. You have some of his elegance." Meng Xiaoqi shook his head. "Although I don't want to kill you, You're blocking the path of the demonic blade sect, so I have no choice but to kill you. Kill me? How arrogant! Song Jifan smiled faintly and looked at him calmly. Demonic blade sect, with the longevity church here, what else can the demonic blade sect do? What a joke. Then let's try. Meng Xiaoqi slashed down with his blade. Song Jifan's blue robe fluttered, and the golden crown on his head shone brightly under the sun. He looked like a celestial descending from heaven, and his body was glowing. Chu Li could not help but frown. Song Jifan gave him an unfathomable feeling. He could not figure out the depth of Song Jifan's cultivation level, and the aura on his body was constantly increasing, giving him a huge pressure. This pressure kept increasing, and he felt like he had seen a celestial earlier. In terms of aura and the strength of the enlightened God's field, the two were evenly matched. Chu Li did not know who was stronger if they fought, but no matter who was stronger or weaker, it was not good news for him. They were both people who wanted to kill him, and he could not defeat them now. Although he was improving, cultivating the tiger taming technique, and advancing the indestructible body of titanium by 2 levels, he was still a level lower than them. This made him feel bad. If this went on, he would fall further behind, and in the end, he would not be worthy of being their opponent, and would become their stepping stone. How could he accept this? He stared at the two, and wanted to use the omniscient mirror to observe them, but it was forced back by the light, so he could only observe with his naked eyes. These thoughts flashed through his mind in a flash. Chapter 3566. As the long sword was unsheathed, Song Jifan's aura grew stronger. Light shone down from the sky and enveloped his body, slowly entering his body and the long sword he was unsheathing. His body and the sword seemed to have become one. He had truly reached the state of being one with the sword. It was shining brightly and illuminating the surroundings, dispersing the darkness around the black blade. Bang! With a muffled sound, the black blade and the shining long sword clashed. They both took a step back and stopped in the void, staring at each other in shock. Chu Li's expression was solemn. Song Jifan's sword was shining brightly as if he was holding a lightsaber. His face could not be seen clearly, but it had become one with him. It was as if he was the sword and the sword was him. It was hard to tell them apart. It was obvious that he had cultivated an antique swordsmanship. Chu Li speculated that it was the heaven-murdering tactic. This was the heaven-murdering tactic that he had been desperately hoping to obtain. With this tactic, along with his heaven-murdering sword and heaven-murdering 3 forms, he might be able to defeat the spirit tiger. This time, he came back to plan for the heaven-killing incantation, but he didn't expect that Song Jifan would actually be able to cultivate it. Now, it seemed that the incantation's power was astonishing. Back then, when he faced the heaven realm, Song Jifan could only pretend to be dead, but now, he could fight with the heaven realm, and it seemed like they were evenly matched, not at a disadvantage. What martial art is this? Meng Xiaoqi scoffed. The light around him suddenly brightened. Heaven-murdering tactic, Song Jifan said proudly. Meng Xiaoqi frowned. Heaven-murdering tactic? I've never heard of it. Song Jifan scoffed. You're just ignorant. Your demonic blade technique is also ordinary. Take another strike from me. The lightsaber in his hand suddenly lit up and in the next moment, it was already at Meng Xiaoqi's chest. Meng Xiaoqi slashed at Song Jifan's neck, ignoring the long sword that was stabbing at him. He was risking his life. Bang! Song Jifan waved his sword to block the long sword. Both of them disappeared in a flash and appeared in the void 10 meters away. They frowned and stared at each other, feeling helpless and difficult to deal with. They felt that they could not win. Although Song Jifan's cultivation level was lower than Meng Xiaoqi's, he benefited from the power of the heaven-murdering tactic. Meng Xiaoqi was stronger but could not do anything to the heaven-murdering tactic. Pring, 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 pring. The two of them exchanged over a dozen moves in succession. Their swords and sabers clashed, but neither could do anything to the other. Chu Li suddenly thrust out his god-slaying sword. Bang! The brilliance around Song Jifan suddenly soared, and then he sneered, "Despicable guy!" Meng Xiaoqi also staggered with a pring sound as if he was drunk. Immediately after, his entire body shone brightly and returned to normal. He stared coldly at Song Jifan. What a good murdering heaven incantation! Chu Li's expression changed slightly. Song Jifan was attacked by his own god-punishing sword, but Meng Xiaoqi was attacked by Song Jifan. However, Song Jifan's attack was formless, but he could feel that it was similar to the god-punishing sword. This heaven-killing art could actually be like his own god-punishing sword, and not only could it attack the soul, it could also become one with the sword. Presumably it could borrow the power of the sword to strengthen itself. He suddenly understood why Song Jifan had to find the heaven-slaughtering sword. It was because the heaven-slaughtering sword was the hardest and sharpest sword in the world. Borrowing the power of this sword, he was truly invincible and no one could harm him. When he thought of this, he felt a chill in his heart. It was too difficult to obtain this heaven-killing art. In the current situation, it was almost impossible to provoke the two of them to fight each other. Chu Li suddenly shouted, "Fellow from the demonic blade sect, you must be activating some secret technique. How long can you last?" Meng Xiaoqi sneered, "Good boy, I almost forgot about you." He slashed down with his sword and suddenly disappeared. The sword and him appeared in front of Chu Li. The edge of the sword was already close to Chu Li's neck, but Chu Li's body was limp and powerless. He did not even try to dodge. He could only watch as his head was about to be cut off. "Humph!" Song Jifan snorted angrily. The tip of his sword hit the long sword, and then stabbed at Meng Xiaoqi's chest. Meng Xiaoqi did not dodge. He slashed at Song Jifan's head. "Bishop!" Chu Li shouted softly. He suddenly stretched out his left arm to block the long sword. Chi! The long sword easily cut through his left forearm like cutting through paper. Half of his forearm fell to the ground. When Song Jifan heard Chu Li's shout, he suddenly had an idea. The long sword suddenly sped up. He did not care about the long sword on his neck. Ugh! Meng Xiaoqi's eyes suddenly widened. He barely moved sideways to avoid the sword. The center of his chest was pierced by the long sword. The spirit in his body instantly rushed to the sword. It was as if he wanted to devour it. Song Jifan sneered. He turned his wrist and twisted the long sword. Meng Xiaoqi swung his sword down. At this time, Chu Li fell again. The long sword pressed towards Song Jifan. Song Jifan took a step back to avoid. At the same time, he pulled Chu Li up. The turbulent inner energy continuously drilled into Chu Li's body. It was the profound cultivation of the art of eternal agility. It was repairing Chu Li's arm. Chu Li was refreshed. He felt his empty body quickly recover. He quickly said, "Thank you, Bishop." Song Jifan shook his head, disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared behind Meng Xiaoqi. He stabbed. Meng Xiaoqi turned his head and blocked the tip of the sword with the blade. Bang! The long sword fell back and hit his wound. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Chu Li hatefully, suddenly disappeared in a flash. Bishop, quickly chase after him. His secret technique must be losing its effects soon. He can't escape. Chu Li hurriedly shouted. Song Jifan glanced at the crowd, nodded slowly. "Be careful." As soon as he finished, he slowly merged into the void, disappeared without a trace. Chu Li let out a long sigh, looked at Elder Fong, who had become a middle-aged woman. "Elder, it's my fault." "It's not your fault. I was too careless. I stayed on the floating mountain. I underestimated the heroes of the world." Elder Fong shook her head. Her expression was solemn. She looked at the corpse and head on the ground, shook her head. "Think of a way to destroy his demonic blade. Only then his soul can be freed and return to the outland." "Bishop, you can definitely kill that guy," Chu Li quickly said. "I hope so." Elder Fong slowly nodded. She didn't dare to look down on the heroes of the world anymore. This guy from the demonic blade sect was actually a celestial being. This time she was able to keep her life. She was really lucky that her soul wasn't destroyed. She still had to rely on Bailey Na's help. If it was not for Bailey Na desperately blocking, he would have been dead, vanishing into thin air. As she thought of this, she felt a chill in her heart, but at the same time, she looked at Chu Li with a clear gaze. She suddenly wavered. Was she really going to leave the floating mountain to conquer the world? Only 4 masters died today, but she was already a little disappointed and worried. The road to conquer the world must be full of thorns. She did not know how many bones would be used to pave the road, how many disciples of the longevity denomination could survive. As she thought of this, she suddenly had the thought of retreating. She suddenly did not agree with Song Jifan's plan. The floating mountain was extremely comfortable, everyone lived carefreely, then entered the outland to continue living. This was actually a good life. Why must they conquer the world and destroy the peaceful life of the floating mountain? Elder, are we going back? Chu Li's words broke her deep thoughts. Elder Fong sorted out her thoughts, sighed, and slowly said, "Bring them back, let's go." Everyone nodded, collected the corpses and heads, then returned to the floating mountain. Returning to the floating mountain naturally attracted people's attention and discussions. Chapter 3567. As soon as Chu Li returned to the bedroom in the courtyard, he immediately began to channel. The life and death scripture was quickly activated, and he quickly aged, then died, and finally began to grow from a baby. His arm had already grown back, and time passed quickly on his body. Soon, he grew from a baby to his current appearance and returned to his original state. His original arm had already returned to normal, and there was no feeling of being cut off. There was no sense of weakness, as if it had never been cut off. At this time, 2 hours had passed. Chu Li sat on the bed, recalling the previous scene, and still felt a little frightened. The power of these 2 men's sword and knife was too strong, and he was no match for them. His strongest god-slaying sword was also ineffective against them, and it was no different from cutting off his arm. However, he still had a trace of confidence that the demon blade could not break his indestructible body of titanium. If he had not temporarily stopped the indestructible body of titanium, the demon blade might not have been able to cut off his palm and arm. After all, the demon blade was terrifying because of its inner energy, not the black wooden blade. However, he dared not determine whether the indestructible body of titanium could block the heaven-murdering technique. The heaven-murdering technique that Song Jifan displayed was too powerful. Not only was it strong in attack, but it was also strong in defense. If it could block his strongest god-slaying sword, what else could hurt him? He suddenly disappeared, and the next moment, he returned to his original appearance, and arrived at the top of a mountain. Even if they were Devis and enlightened masters, he could still sense them with the heavenly star insight and the all-seeing eye. Because the demon blade was stained with his blood, the connection between it and his blood was stronger. However, the feeling was vague, and not as accurate as usual. Bang 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 bang, the muffled sound was endless, and Song Jifan and Meng Xiaoqi floated in the sky above a bare mountain. The light sword and the black blade were fighting, and the dark blade light and the bright sword light shone in the sky. Only the blade light and the sword light could be seen, but the figures of the 2 could not be seen. Under the sword light and the blade light, the 2 could not be seen clearly, and only a vague shadow could be seen. Chu Li stood at the top of the mountain, watching the 2 fight from afar. He wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, and take advantage of the situation. He silently retreated a certain distance and performed the life and death scripture. A trace of his psyche drilled out and landed on a tree. Using the tree as his ears and eyes, he clearly saw the situation of the 2 fighting and their conversation. He did not dare to get close to avoid being discovered by the 2 of them. The deity field covered a large area, and once he got close, he would be discovered by the two of them. At that time, it was very likely that the two of them would tacitly get rid of him first before continuing to fight. As time passed, the two of them did not show any signs of weakening. The saber light and the sword light were still shining, and they were equally matched. It seemed that it would be difficult to determine the victor even if this battle continued for a long time. Song Jifan was a little anxious. In fact, he was barely holding on. The heaven-murdering incantation consumed too much internal energy. Even though he had the unaging live forever technique, which constantly extracted longevity and converted it into internal energy, he had already become a 100-year-old old man. If things went on like this, it was very likely that his lifespan would be completely depleted. At that time, even if he didn't die, he would still die. No one could do anything about it. No matter how powerful the ageless live forever technique was, it couldn't regenerate lifespan out of nothing. However, he was only slightly anxious, not too flustered. As long as he moved the battlefield to a crowded place, he could use the ageless live forever technique to devour a few experts, and he would be able to recover his lifespan and continue fighting. Meng Xiaoqi was even more anxious. He had broken the seal for 2 hours, and he had lost 20 years of his lifespan. The time he could stay in the world was only 100 years, and it had already exceeded 2 hours. The 4th hour meant that 40 years had already been deducted. There were only 60 years left in 100 years, and if they continued to fight, he might only be left with 40 years. At that time, the gains would not make up for the losses. When he thought of that, he had the intention to retreat. "Cult Master Song, let's stop here for today," he said in a deep voice. He suddenly appeared 100 feet away in a flash and shook his head. "It's useless for us to continue fighting. It's hard to tell who's better." "It is indeed hard to tell who's better." Song Jifan snorted as he sheathed his sword. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief and said indifferently, "However, you have to be careful. I've just cultivated the heaven-murdering incantation, and my attainment is still shallow. When I'm more proficient, I won't even need 10 moves to deal with you. It'll be as easy as flipping my hand." Meng Xiaoqi sneered. "Had 10 moves? You don't believe me?" Song Jifan said indifferently, 10 moves is still too much. If I get the heaven-murdering sword, 1 move is enough to kill you. Even Song Wuji can't kill a celestial in 1 move." Meng Xiaoqi shook his head and laughed. "Where does your confidence come from? Could it be that you can surpass Song Wuji? You've seen my ancestor?" Song Jifan raised his eyebrows. "Yes." Meng Xiaoqi nodded. "However, I can't tell you because of the heavenly rules. If you want to see him, then go to the heavens. What's the point of staying in this world? The spiritual energy is scarce, the aura is turbid, and life is bitter and short. It's really a kind of torture. The sky beyond heaven is so good, why did you come down?" Song Jifan sneered with an expression of, "I'd be a fool to believe you." Meng Xiaoqi snorted. "Do you think I want to come down?" Song Jifan said, "Why exactly did you come down? It can't be to revive the demonic blade sect, right?" "That's right." Meng Xiaoqi nodded. "The demonic blade sect will be revived in my hands. Let me tell you in advance, not only my demonic blade sect, but many ancient sects will also have celestial beings coming down. What are you guys going to do?" Song Jifan said sternly. This was not good news for him. If he had the heaven-killing sword, then it would be fine. Even if a celestial being came, he would still kill them. Killing a celestial being was like killing a dog. Although it was not that easy to kill a celestial being, it was enough to kill them. When a celestial being came here, he only had half of his power left. He was stronger than a celestial being and could not easily kill a celestial being, so he was not afraid of a celestial being. It was a pity that he did not have the heaven-killing sword now. It was difficult to fully display the power of the heaven-killing incantation. It was really frustrating. The first thing to do was to take back the heaven-killing sword. This was the most important thing, and he could not wait any longer. Thinking of this, he was not in the mood to tangle with Meng Xiaoqi anymore. He said in a deep voice, "How many more celestial beings are coming down?" "I don't know." Meng Xiaoqi smiled faintly. "Your Changshan sect is not considered a big sect. If you want to rise again, you have to see if the other sects agree. In my opinion, you should give up." "Humph, then let's wait and see," Song Jifan said coldly. Meng Xiaoqi said, "All right, then let's see whether your Changshan sect is more powerful or my demonic blade sect is more powerful. Goodbye." He swung his blade. A black light flashed and his figure suddenly disappeared. Song Jifan stared at the direction where he disappeared, guarding against a sudden flash to ambush him. After a while, he sighed in relief. His face darkened. Originally, he thought that after cultivating the heaven-killing incantation, even if he could not kill an enlightened being like killing a chicken, there was almost no opponent in the world. He never thought that a celestial being would come, and more than one at that. It was really disappointing. He immediately thought of Chu Li. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. His gloomy face turned into a smile. This time, he would finally avenge his previous humiliation. He would torture Chu Li and force him to hand over the heaven-killing sword. Not only would he hand over the heaven-killing sword, but he would also kill him. Before killing him, he would first snatch his woman. Thinking of this, Song Jifan could not help but laugh to the sky. He suddenly disappeared in a flash and appeared outside the public house in the next moment. He was sure that the heaven-killing sword was hidden in Goddess Attraction Mountain, but he did not want to enter Goddess Attraction Mountain. As far as he knew, Goddess Attraction Mountain was guarded by a supreme-rank spirit beast, the Golden Dragon. This Golden Dragon would not help Goddess Attraction Mountain kill people, but it would protect Goddess Attraction Mountain. Anyone who dared to be presumptuous on Goddess Attraction Mountain would not have a good ending. Most people did not know this secret, but he did. Otherwise, he would have killed his way to Goddess Attraction Mountain and snatched the heaven-killing sword. Chapter 3568. Chu Li, come out! Song Jifan shouted. He was dressed in a blue robe, and his face was as white as jade. His golden crown shone brightly under the sunlight, giving him an air of nobility. The High Duke's public house was located at the north gate of Chongming Town. Although there were protectors guarding the place, there were many people coming and going. Most of them came to admire the High Duke's public house. The High Duke's public house was a transcendent existence in Chongming Town. If outsiders who came to Chongming Town did not take a look at the public house, they would feel that they were walking in vain. Song Jifan's voice was like a clap of thunder exploding in the sky above Chongming Town. The people immediately raised their heads and looked towards the direction of the High Duke's public house. They knew that someone had come to provoke Chief Chu Li again and could not help but shake their heads. The people around the public house rushed over to watch the show. Ever since Chu Li had made a name for himself, there were a lot of people who came to challenge Chu Li. Most of the time, Chu Li did not even need to show up personally. The protectors of the High Duke's public house would just send them away. The protectors of the High Duke's public house's protectors were getting stronger and stronger. They were able to handle almost anyone who came to challenge them. These challengers were all people who wanted to make a name for themselves with just one battle. They were people who had extraordinary martial arts, but they had not reached the peak yet. Stand down! Chu Li's voice echoed throughout Chongming Town. The protectors who were about to rush forward to question him immediately took a few steps back and stood on the steps of the main entrance. They glared at Song Jifan fiercely and did not come any closer. Chu Li's authority was growing, and his orders were strictly enforced. Chu Li's white robe fluttered in the wind as he passed through the main entrance of the High Duke's public house. He arrived at the top of the stairs and looked at Song Jifan. He smiled and said, You still dare to come here, Chief Song? Is it not enough to lose once? You want to try again? Chu Li, you will definitely die this time, Song Jifan said with his hand on the hilt of his sword. The force around his body began to surge. This was to prevent Chu Li from suddenly taking out the god-slaying sword to prevent him from being ambushed. As soon as Chu Li appeared, he used the heaven-killing technique and merged his body with the treasure sword. Although the treasure sword at his waist could not be compared to the sky regicide sword, it was still a rare treasure sword. It could cut through iron as if it was mud and could cut through hair. It had fused with his body and reached an indestructible level. He was not afraid of Chu Li's god-slaying sword. Chu Li chuckled. All right, you said the same thing the last time. What do you want to compete in? Sword technique. Song Jifan pressed on his sword and said coldly, Don't think that just because you won against me last time, you can always win. This time, Chu Li waved his hand and said, How about this, let's make a bet. Song Jifan snorted, What prize? Chu Li pointed at the long sword on his waist and smiled. This sword of yours is a treasure sword, right? Of course. Song Jifan humphed. It can cut through iron like mud. It's a real treasure sword. How is it compared to the heaven-killing sword? Chu Li asked. Song Jifan hesitated for a moment and shook his head. Of course not. Chu Li smiled. All right then. This sword of mine is the Crouching Tiger Divine Sword. It's a treasured sword that has killed a spirit tiger. What about yours? Shadow-bearing sword. Song Jifan snorted. The sword leaves no shadow. Chu Li nodded. If you can defeat me, this tiger-taming divine sword will be yours. As for the sky regicide sword, you should just give up. All right, if you can defeat me, this shadow-bearing sword will be yours. Song Jifan said. Chu Li nodded. If that's the case, then let's compete. This time, let's change the way we compete. Otherwise, people will say that I'm bullying you and that I'm not being a good host. How do we compete? Song Jifan frowned. He felt that something was wrong. This Chu Li was full of tricks. He did not know what he was up to. It was better to be careful and not fall for his trick. Chu Li said, This time, I won't fight back. If you can defeat me within 10 moves, I'll admit defeat. If you can't defeat me within 10 moves, I'll win. How about that? Song Jifan's mind raced to see if there was a trap. Chu Li smiled. I won't fight back. I'll either dodge or take it head-on. If I fight back, it'll be my loss. Under such circumstances, if you can't defeat me within 10 moves, how is that not considered a loss? All right, you can't wear armor or use weapons. For the sake of safety, Song Jifan did not care about his pride. Chu Li chuckled and shook his head. I can't wear armor either? Of course. Song Jifan scoffed. What if you're wearing treasured clothing? How can I hurt you? Chu Li shook his head. What about weapons? If you can't even use weapons, you might as well surrender. If you don't want to compete, then forget it. We'll see who's the real deal. Song Jifan sneered. He just wanted to force Chu Li to see what tricks he had up his sleeves. Chu Li thought about it and sighed. I really can't do anything against a shameless guy like you. All right, then I won't use armor or weapons. My clothes don't have any armor, right? That'll do. Song Jifan scoffed. Chu Li nodded. Come, let everyone witness it. 10 moves. Chief Song, make your move. Watch out for my sword. Song Jifan shouted. His body suddenly shrunk a little, as if he had become shorter and thinner. In fact, his figure did not change, but it gave people the feeling that it was the 10th level of the sacrificial divine power. The enlightened master's field that he had withdrawn immediately spread out. The surrounding people only felt a turbulent force rushing towards them like a huge wave crashing down. They could not help but be swept up into the air. Chu Li shook his head and waved his long sleeve. The people immediately landed on the ground lightly. The violent force disappeared and they felt like a spring breeze. They suddenly felt like they had narrowly escaped death. They could not help but fist salute Chu Li, thanking him for saving their lives. Chu Li said, "Chief Song, why do you have to use this trick?" Song Jifan sneered. The Chengying sword was unsheathed and turned into a bright light that shot towards Chu Li. Chu Li raised his hand to block it. Bang! Amidst the muffled sound, Chu Li's palm flashed with a purple-gold light. It was as if his palm was made of purple gold and blocked the burning tip of the sword. The people could not see the appearance of the Chengying sword clearly. They could only see a light sword. The sword's light reflected on Chu Li's purple-gold palm. His palm was slender and well-proportioned. It was very comfortable to look at. Chu Li raised his voice. "One move." Again. Song Jifan scoffed. He was in awe. He never thought that someone could block his heaven-cursing scripture with flesh and blood. This sword was already at its peak. It was the 10th level of the sacrificial technique and the heaven-cursing scripture. Its power was unparalleled. Even a celestial would not dare to block this sword, but Chu Li could. Could he be stronger than a celestial? When he thought of this, he was suddenly furious. He was a genius. He originally planned to cultivate the heaven-cursing scripture in half a year, but he did it in less than a month. It was really a gift from heaven. It was faster than his imagination. He admired himself more and more. He never thought that he could not kill Chu Li. Could it be that Chu Li was born to be his nemesis? Was he born to restrain him? The anger in his heart surged. He was even more ruthless. He gathered all the energy in his body into his sword and stabbed it again. Bang! Chu Li still blocked the tip of the sword with his palm. He looked at Song Jifan calmly and shook his head. "This sword technique is the heaven-cursing scripture? You exaggerate. So the heaven-cursing scripture is only this powerful. How disappointing!" "Ah!" Song Jifan roared. His body suddenly lit up as if a flame was spewing out from his body. He stabbed again with his sword. Bang! Chu Li took a step back and removed the powerful force from the sword. His right palm flashed with a purple-gold light, almost turning into a pure purple color. Chapter 3569. Chu Li made up his mind. He did not expect his indestructible body of titanium to be so powerful that it could actually defend against the sky-murdering tactic. The power of the sky-murdering tactic came from inner energy, not the power of the sword. The sharpness of the sword was integrated into one's own inner energy, making it invincible. However, it was powerless against the indestructible body of titanium. The indestructible body of titanium could defend against the fire of Vermilion Bird and the spiritual energy of the Spirit Tiger. It could also defend against the sky-murdering tactic. After making up his mind, Chu Li naturally seized the opportunity to destroy Song Jifan's confidence. He wanted him to form a conditioned reflex, which was to fear him. He wanted him to know that as long as he met him, he would fail. Song Jifan gritted his teeth. He did not expect his strongest martial art to be unable to defeat Chu Li. His original wishful thinking had now become a joke. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. The elation and excitement from before had turned into disappointment, despair, hatred, and pain. Chu Li laughed out loud. "Don't tell me this heaven-murdering tactic was broken by you? Did Song Wuji really kill many enlightened masters with the sky-murdering tactic? Each generation is worse than the previous. I'm sure Song Wuji saw this scene in the sky and wanted to be replaced." "Shut up!" Song Jifan roared angrily. His jade-like face contorted into a hideous expression. His eyes burned like fire. Suddenly, his left arm exploded with a bang. Then, like a flash of lightning, he instantly appeared behind Chu Li and stabbed at his back. Chu Li did not dodge. Instead, he used his elbow to block. Bang! He took a step back and looked down. There was a small hole in the white robe. This white robe was given to him by Shao Qi. It was a treasured robe. It was usually untainted by dust. Now that it could not block this sword, it showed how terrifying this sword was. The sky-murdering tactic lived up to its name. Chu Li was very distressed. He snorted angrily. That's all you got? Song Jifan was hit by Chu Li's elbow. His wrist was numb from the impact. In terms of the depth of his cultivation, Chu Li was slightly inferior. Even though he had mastered the tiger-taming tactic, it was still not as deep as Song Jifan. He was only able to suppress him earlier because of the Godslayer. Now that the deity-slaying sword had lost its effect on him, it was still able to push him back. However, it was because of pure strength. The completion of the art of the Imperial Tiger allowed his strength to increase by 3 times. Innate strength was no longer enough to describe it. Song Jifan was worried and said, "What kind of stupid martial arts is this?" Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "How many more moves do you have, cult leader Song? Watch out!" Song Jifan snorted angrily and turned into a beam of light again. Chu Li became one with his sword. His sword flashed and the cold lightning was dazzling. His figure could not be seen, only Chu Li's purplish-golden palm could be seen waving and blocking the cold lightning. 10 moves are up, right? Chu Li laughed out loud. Cult leader Song, if you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose. Hand over your swords. Alright. Song Jifan's face was as red as a drunkard's. He stared deeply at Chu Li and said, "I will get this sword back." Chu Li could not help but laugh. Cult leader Song, you've already had your fill. I'm only responding to your attacks, and have yet to retaliate. Why don't I attack you for another 10 moves? If you can block it, you win? Humph, there's no need for that. Song Jifan knew that he could not do anything to Chu Li. He felt aggrieved, and only wanted to go back and continue his isolated cultivation so that he could improve the Regal Sky sword to the state of perfection. He felt that he was just a little bit off. Although Chu Li looked relaxed and calm, he felt that he was just a little bit off. If he was just a little bit stronger, he would be able to break through his divine protective technique. Chu Li smiled and said, "Then, take this." Chu Li said and struck with his palm. It was as if his whole body became shorter. He squatted down and struck with his palm, covering up the feeling of being shorter. This palm was the Vajra palm. Purplish golden light circulated. It was light but strangely fast. It seemed like a casual palm had already hit Song Jifan's hand. Song Jifan realized that something was wrong and quickly struck with his palm. Both palms clashed in a hurry. Bang! Chu Li stood firmly on the spot while Song Jifan flew backward and hit the wall across the street. Crash! The wall behind Song Jifan collapsed. Song Jifan was a little embarrassed. He floated up to avoid the falling stone and stood in the air, glaring at Chu Li. Chu Li shook his head. "Leader Song, if you're not satisfied, you can look for me again. This time doesn't count, just treat it as a joke." As he spoke, he threw the long sword. Song Jifan caught his Chengying sword steadily and scoffed with a gloomy face. "What do you mean by this?" Chu Li shook his head. "Although your sword is good, it's not as good as my crouching tiger divine sword. Forget it, keep it for yourself. If you lose again, this sword will truly belong to me." Fake generosity, how hypocritical! Song Jifan sneered. However, he did not return the sword. The Chengying sword was the best treasure sword he found in the secret storage of the floating mountain. It could really cut through iron as if it was mud. Its sharpness was unparalleled. If he lost this sword, the power of his Regal Sky scripture would be a notch lower. Now, he could not break through Chu Li's defense. If it was a slightly inferior treasure sword, even if the Regal Sky scripture was improved, it might not break through his defense. In order to turn the tables and truly defeat Chu Li, in order to obtain the Regal Sky sword, he could throw away his pride. It was better if Chu Li did not want the Chengying sword. Song Jifan was already distressed, but this time, he was finally satisfied. Chu Li laughed. Looks like you don't want this sword. You should return it to me then. Song Jifan hung the Qingying sword on his waist. He raised his head and sneered. I'll let you go this time. If it was a real life and death battle, killing you would be a piece of cake. It's just that because of the regal sky sword, I can't kill you. Goodbye. Chu Li shook his head. In terms of shamelessness, only you, Leader Song. Same to you. Song Jifan scoffed and instantly disappeared into the void. The surrounding people looked at Chu Li in admiration. They had heard rumors of him killing enlightened masters. This time, they saw him face an enlightened master with their own eyes. The enlightened master's crazy attacks could not do anything to him. He could send the enlightened master flying with one palm. Seeing was believing. This time, they had no doubts and doubts. They closed fist saluted one after another. Chu Li smiled and bowed to the crowd. Then, he floated back to the High Duke's public house. After he met with Xueling, he suddenly disappeared. The omniscient mirror and the star insight technique combined allowed him to suddenly appear in a small town. He saw Song Jifan, who was taking a stroll in the town. Song Jifan's face was blank. He slowly walked on the bustling street. It was as if he was in a different world from the noise around him. His back looked lonely. In front of Chu Li, he could not show his disappointment and pain. In front of the church members, including Elder Fong, he could not show his weakness. He had been hit and defeated again and again. He felt that he could not take it anymore. He needed to relax and get drunk. He wanted to find a woman who was as beautiful as Sun Mingyue and comfort him with her gentle words. He walked past one restaurant after another. However, he was not in the mood to get drunk. Finally, when he came to a restaurant, his gaze suddenly focused. He saw a woman dressed in white. Her face was covered with a white veil. Only a pair of bright eyes could be seen. Her eyes were as clear as water. They were exceptionally beautiful. His spirit was lifted. It was as if he saw Sun Mingyue. Could it be that Sun Mingyue was here? Chapter 3570. However, with such a graceful and alluring body and a cold and aloof temperament, although not as good as Sun Mingyue's, it was already a rare sight. She was much better than those mediocre beauties and could enter his eyes. His confused and lonely thoughts immediately receded and were replaced by excitement and excitement. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward and followed her into the restaurant. When he arrived at the table where the lady was, he sat directly next to her. The lady sat there alone, propping her cheeks in her hands as if she was in deep thought. Song Jifan felt pity for her as he looked at her. He wanted to go forward and listen to her troubles so that he could help her solve them. Unfortunately, he knew that if he went forward rashly, he would definitely be regarded as a lecher. Although he had never been in a relationship with a woman, he knew this basic principle. As the bishop, every move of his had to be scrutinized by the congregation. He had always been as calm as an old man on the floating mountain and did not break the rules. Therefore, he did not have any relations with women. He ordered a pot of wine and a few side dishes. Then, he sat beside the lady and drank slowly. He was leisurely and at ease as he looked at the lady. He could not see her face clearly because she was wearing a white veil. However, when it was time to eat, even the most powerful martial arts would have to take off the veil. Therefore, he wanted to see the lady's face clearly before deciding what to do. After a while, the waiter served the dishes. The lady in white gently took off the white veil and revealed a mediocre face. Song Jifan was instantly disappointed and sighed to himself. Yes, how many women in this world were there like Sun Mingyue? How could he be so lucky to meet one? In this aspect, he was far less lucky than Chu Li. What a damn fellow! Thinking of this, he angrily stomped his feet and drank the wine in one gulp. Then, he poured another cup for himself and drank it all in one gulp. Just like that, he finished the pot of wine in one breath and ordered another pot. Pot after pot, He drank 10 pots of wine in a short while. Deliberately getting drunk, he did not circulate his inner energy at all. Instead, he purposely stopped his inner energy to prevent the alcohol from dissolving on its own. It was very difficult to get drunk with an enlightened master's body. Without his inner force, he had to drink 10 jars of strong liquor before he was drunk. The waiter in the distance was a little frightened. At first, he was very happy when he saw that the customer had ordered so much wine. These were the best and most expensive wines in the shop, and he could make a lot of money. However, when he saw Song Jifan drinking so fiercely, he was a little worried. If he still wanted to fight after drinking, it would scare away a lot of customers, and it would be really troublesome. But seeing Song Jifan's expression, the waiter didn't dare to step forward to persuade him. He could only retreat to the side worriedly and stare at them. After drinking 10 jars of strong liquor, Song Jifan felt slightly tipsy. He felt an indescribable sense of enjoyment. He felt light as a feather, as if he was ascending to immortality. Everything became pleasing to the eye. Ha ha! He suddenly let out a few loud laughs, revealing a heroic spirit that soared to the heavens. He glanced around and saw that everyone was looking at him in fear. Although he had suppressed his martial arts and prevented his inner energy from circulating to cure himself of the alcohol, he had forgotten to suppress it in his tipsy state. As a result, his laughter was mixed with the inner energy of an enlightened deity. How could an ordinary person withstand it? Fortunately, he only laughed twice. Everyone felt as if thunder had pierced their ears and their hearts were about to jump out of their chests. They couldn't bear it. Song Jifan looked at their eyes and suddenly felt bored. So what if he was awe-inspiring in front of these people? So what if he was an enlightened deity? He still couldn't defeat Chu Li and had to endure Chu Li's humiliation and ridicule. Every time, he had to come forward and humiliate himself. When he thought of this, he hated himself even more. Bang! His eyes suddenly shot out an electric light. He grabbed the long sword on the table and disappeared in a flash. Ding! His chest suddenly exploded. 2 balls of white powder rustled and floated down. It was the explosion of the tranquil pendant. It was used to protect his soul. Now that it had exploded, it was obvious that his soul had suffered a fatal attack. Despicable! Song Jifan scoffed angrily and took a step forward to face Chu Li. Chu Li appeared out of thin air. His god-slaying sword had already been thrust forward, but he didn't expect it to be blocked by the tranquil pendant. He shook his head helplessly. The sword in Song Jifan's hand suddenly shone brightly, but it exploded with a bang. You! Song Jifan immediately knew that the Tringying sword had been tampered with. He used the heaven-killing scripture with all his might. The Tringying sword couldn't withstand the power of the heaven-killing scripture and exploded. Chu Li laughed. Chief Song, without the Tringying sword, how powerful is your heaven-killing scripture? Chu Li, it's your doing. Song Jifan gritted his teeth and stared at Chu Li angrily. He sneered. No wonder you were so kind to return the sword to me. I thought you really didn't like it. Chu Li shook his head. How can I not like such a precious sword? You're really despicable and shameless. Song Jifan shook his head. I didn't expect you to be such a person. I really overestimated you. Chu Li nodded. I'm such an unscrupulous person. Chief Song wanted to kill me, so I had to take the initiative. What other tricks will Chief Song have this time? The tranquil pendant has already shattered. What else can block the god-slaying sword? As he spoke, he materialized the god-slaying sword. There was originally only one sword in the void of his mind. After stabbing Song Jifan, it didn't work. Now, he needed a second sword. The power of the sword earlier was shocking. If not, 2 tranquil pendants wouldn't have exploded. This sword was 2 swords combined into one. It had shocking power. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. It still didn't work. He needed a few words to materialize another sword. Song Jifan sneered. You think you've won? Chu Li said, without the Tringying sword, can the heaven-killing scripture still block me? Of course. Song Jifan said proudly. Chu Li, do you think you're the smartest? Chu Li frowned at him. Song Jifan took out a short sword. The sword was only the length of a forearm. The scabbard was ancient and colorful. A strong ancient aura rushed out. He shook the short sword proudly and sneered. Have you heard of this sword? The ancient Dragon Fang sword. Chu Li frowned and shook his head. Song Jifan scoffed. There's no harm in telling you. This Dragon Fang sword is said to be the tooth of a golden dragon. It's indestructible. It's even better than the Tringying sword. Chu Li laughed. How can a golden dragon have teeth? Who told you that a golden dragon has no teeth? Song Jifan said in disdain. You're a disciple of Goddess Attraction Mountain. Have you never seen a golden dragon? Chu Li shook his head. Song Jifan sneered. Then have a taste of the power of the Dragon Fang sword. He slowly pulled out the short sword. Suddenly, there was a flash of light. An even stronger force surged out and spread around his body. Chu Li felt this force and knew that he would have to return empty-handed today. It seemed that the Dragon Fang sword was real. Song Jifan, I underestimated him. I didn't expect him to hide his trump card. He didn't use his strongest sword when he fought with me. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The Dragon Fang sword in Song Jifan's hand shook and became brighter. It blocked the attack of the god-killing sword. Chu Li shook his head. As expected, the god-killing sword couldn't do anything to him. Originally, he wanted to take advantage of him being drunk to injure or knock him out. Then, he would read the heaven-killing scripture from his mind. Unfortunately, God's plans were not as good as his. He had done something to the Tringying sword. The flames of the vermilion bird and the energy of the spirit tiger had circled around the Tringying sword. When the extremely cold and intense force of the supreme spirit beasts passed through, the Tringying sword couldn't withstand it. If it encountered the heaven-killing scripture again, it would explode. Chapter 3571. He sneered and snorted before Song Jifan could. Cult Master Song, if you kill them, then I'll kill all the disciples of your floating mountain. I want to see if you can kill more people, or if I can kill more people. If you kill my floating mountain's disciples, I will kill the High Duke's public house. Song Jifan scoffed. Chu Li said coldly, then you must have the ability to do so. Song Jifan said in disdain, say that after you can step on the floating mountain. What's so difficult about the floating mountain? Chu Li said, do you really think I can't enter the floating mountain? Of course. Song Jifan scoffed. No one can enter the floating mountain. Chu Li said, all right then, I'll break through it and show you. He suddenly flashed after he said that. Meng Xiaoqi reacted at this time and shouted, he was tricked. He must have taken the opportunity to escape. Song Jifan glanced at him in disdain and suddenly disappeared. He was not in a hurry to kill the people in the small town. He could kill them later since they could not escape anyway. If Chu Li really escaped, it would be a big deal. Meng Xiaoqi was annoyed by Song Jifan's disdainful look, but he knew it was not the time to fight. It was better to take care of Chu Li first. Killing Song Jifan was strenuous and unrewarding. Moreover, he was worried about Song Wuji. Meng Xiaoqi suddenly disappeared. Both of them appeared at the peak of the floating mountain and saw Chu Li standing in front of them, smiling at the two of them. You know this place? Song Jifan's face was gloomy. This was not good. This was the entrance of the floating mountain. If Chu Li knew this place, it would be easy to kill the floating mountain's disciples. He just had to ambush here. He shuddered at the thought of this. Chu Li sneered, Leader Song, what do you think? You dare to kill my longevity faction's disciples? Song Jifan scoffed. You killed one of my longevity faction's disciples and I will kill 10 of your public house's protectors. Chu Li said, All right then, let's see who can kill who. Your longevity faction's disciples or my public house's disciples will die first. Meng Xiaoqi stood in the void and was not in a hurry to make a move. If both of them fought first, it would not be too late for him to make a move. He could not kill Chu Li without joining forces with Song Jifan. Song Jifan snorted. Our floating mountain disciples rarely go down the mountain. How many can you kill? Break into the floating mountain if you dare. Chu Li said, This is the entrance. I also know the exit. Is it over there? As he spoke, he pointed at the mountain peak in front of him. Across this mountain is the exit of the floating mountain. Am I right, Cult Master Song? Song Jifan's sword-like eyebrows furrowed, and his face darkened even more. Chu Li continued, The disciples of your floating mountain rarely go down the mountain, and rarely go up the mountain. All right, then let's see how many of you can come out. I'll just kill them all. All right, you win. Song Jifan humphed. I'll spare their lives. Chu Li scoffed. Do you really think that the floating mountain is invulnerable and impregnable? Of course. Song Jifan said proudly, The floating mountain is a masterpiece of heaven and earth. No one can break it. Chu Li pursed his lips. Where's the Great One Palace's formation destruction talisman? Have you ever seen a formation breaking talisman? They can't break the floating mountain's formation. Song Jifan curled his lip. Chu Li said, That's not necessarily true. He took out 3 jade pendants and tossed them into the air. The 3 jade pendants turned into 3 rays of light and spread out, then collided in the air. Then, a towering mountain appeared 200 meters high, floating there steadily and motionless, covering the sky. This formation was amazing. It clearly blocked the sun, but standing there, the sun still shone on. Only at this time, when the floating mountain appeared, did it block the sun again, and no one could see the sun. This was obviously caused by the floating mountain's formation, which made it impossible for people to sense the existence of the floating mountain. How is it? Chu Li turned to look at Song Jifan. I only used 3 formation destruction talismans, and no one knows how many formation talismans the Great One Palace has. If they are determined to smash it, do you think they can break the floating mountain? No. Song Jifan gritted his teeth. He wanted to kill the Great One Palace. It seemed like it was better to destroy them. The floating mountain could not appear in front of the world. Once it lost its mysteriousness, there would be less fear of the floating mountain, and it would be much more difficult to unify the martial arts world in the future. Chu Li smiled. I don't think it's impossible. No matter how strong the floating mountain is, it's still powered by a formation. With enough formation destruction talismans, once the formation is broken, I'm afraid everyone on the floating mountain will die. Sigh, even the strongest shield can be broken, not to mention a formation. There's no formation in the world that can't be broken. Shut up. Song Jifan sneered. You have a grudge against the Great One Palace, don't you? Chu Li smiled. That's right. Chu Li, you're really despicable and shameless. Song Jifan glared at him coldly. The floating mountain doesn't welcome you. Get lost now. Chu Li fist saluted and smiled. Then I'll be leaving. He looked at Meng Xiaoqi. Commander Meng, how many more moves do you want to exchange? Have a safe trip. Meng Xiaoqi said coldly. Chu Li shook his head. Commander Meng, although you're a celestial being, the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall isn't a good position. Even if you're from the imperial family, you should be careful of the Emperor's tricks. Our Emperor isn't one who cares about human relationship. Just look at how he dealt with King An's imperial residence. Don't worry. Meng Xiaoqi's expression changed. Chu Li's words hit his heart. Recently, he had also noticed Leng Wufeng's change. Instead of respecting him because he was a senior, Leng Wufeng gradually became rude and bossy, and he did not treat him as a senior anymore. If this went on, Meng Xiaoqi would really become Ling Wufeng's servant and official, and he would really become the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. Previously, Meng Xiaoqi became the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall because he wanted to know the general situation of the world and obtain detailed information. After all, he had always been in the Outland and did not understand this world. Since he had just arrived, he needed enough information to support him so that he could find geniuses and search for the demonic blade sect. He did not really want to do anything for Ling Wufeng. However, based on the current situation, Ling Wufeng seemed to want to make him the commander and serve him wholeheartedly. Chu Li chuckled and fist saluted before he disappeared. Sometimes, the power of words was no weaker than martial arts. The key was to hit the heart, and psychological attacks were better than martial arts. In a flash, Chu Li returned to the backyard of King An's imperial residence. TSS. A dazzling sword light shrouded him. The sound of the sword cutting through the air was extremely fast. Chu Li smiled and flicked his finger. Ding. The sword light that filled the sky dissipated and the long sword flew out of his hand. The power of this Philip's swift thunder was so shocking that Xiao Shi's body froze, and she could not hold her sword anymore. Chu Li waved his hand and the long sword that was tumbling in the sky suddenly returned to his hand. He returned it to Xiao Shi with a smile. The numbness in Xiao Shi's body had subsided. She rolled her eyes at him and took the long sword. "How's my sword technique?" Chu Li smiled. "Not bad." Xiao Qi smiled and shook her head. "Second eldest sister, don't believe me. Your sword technique is too weak. I think it's already very powerful." Xiao Shi was unconvinced. Hui Qing sat proudly in the middle and sized Chu Li up. She scoffed and looked at Xiao Qi with dissatisfaction. Xiao Qi smiled. "Where did he go?" Chapter 3572. What happened? Xiao Qi hurriedly asked. Chu Li let out a sigh and told him everything that had happened. Although Hui Qing was a celestial being, she was not a threat. She was arrogant and only wanted to pursue the Great Way and live as long as the heavens. She was satisfied after finding a successor like Shao Qi. Although she did not like Chu Li, she did not want to kill him. After listening, the three of them looked at him in shock. Shao Shi said, "Chu Li, you're really lucky to be able to come back alive after encountering this." Chu Li nodded. "I was really lucky, or I would have died. Fortunately, the two spirit tigers were trustworthy and didn't destroy your body," Shao Qi said softly. "Don't go to 100,000 Hills next time." Chu Li said, "I still have to go to 100,000 Hills." Hui Qing suddenly sneered and looked at him with disdain. Chu Li smiled. "Master, do you have any advice for me?" "I dare not," Hui Qing said coldly. She turned her head away, obviously not wanting to talk to him. Chu Li said, "Master, you know about 100,000 Hills, right? Are you going there too?" "No," Hui Qing said. Chu Li smiled. "I think the spirit tigers are too strong, and even celestial beings are no match for them. Master, you'll die if you go." Hui Qing did not comment. Chu Li knew he guessed correctly and frowned. "Is there nothing in the world that can restrain supreme spirit beasts? Even in the Outland, supreme spirit beasts can suppress celestial beings?" "Humph." Hui Qing scoffed and did not say anything. Chu Li said thoughtfully, "If that's the case, supreme spirit beasts are beyond the world and no one can suppress them?" He then said, "No, if that's the case, the spirit beasts won't enter 100,000 Hills. There must be someone more powerful controlling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, moving it and gathering it in 100,000 Hills. That's why the spirit beasts moved there." "You're not stupid after all," Hui Qing scoffed. Chu Li smiled. "If that's the case, there's someone more powerful than celestial beings? Will enlightened masters become more powerful people after entering the Outland and rule over celestial beings?" "That sounds reasonable," Hui Qing said coldly. Grandmasters who enter the Outland can live longer and enjoy the wonderful world, but their status won't be as high. Chu nodded. Where's the enlightened master? Once an enlightened master ascends to the realm beyond heaven, his status will be higher than an ordinary celestial, right? Exactly. Hui Qing scoffed. When an enlightened deity enters the Outland, he will be more powerful than an ordinary celestial being. Once he cultivates to the extreme, he can step into the great enlightened deity realm. A great enlightened deity can fight against supreme-grade spirit beasts. If that's the case, no one in this world is able to control the supreme-rank spirit beasts. Chu frowned. Hui Qing nodded slowly. That's right, so don't even think about taking revenge. Just admit your defeat and stay away from the 100,000 mountains. Supreme spirit beasts aren't so easily deceived. Thank you for telling me. Chu gave a fist salute. Hui Qing scoffed. What's the point of me saying all this? You're still going to die. She had seen through Chu-Li's temperament. Even if it was dangerous and his life was at stake, he still wanted to go to the 100,000 hills. He faced the difficulties head-on and did not succumb to the might of the spirit tiger. This was also the source of his current achievement. Sigh, Chu shook his head and said, "No one can control it. Taoist priest, do you know the heaven-killing art? Song Wuji's heaven-murdering technique?" Hui Qing frowned. "You've cultivated it?" Chu shook his head. Hui Qing scoffed. "If it's the heaven-murdering technique, you can give it a try. The prerequisite is that you have the heaven-murdering sword. Without the heaven-murdering sword, it's useless no matter how powerful the heaven-murdering technique is. Only by complementing each other can you unleash a power that surpasses that of an enlightened master." Chu asked, "Can I kill the spirit tiger?" "You want to kill the spirit tiger?" Hui Qing frowned as she looked at Chu. Chu nodded slowly. Hui Qing said, "If you kill the spirit tiger, you'll suffer the revenge of all the supreme spirit beasts. Not only you, but Shao Qi and the others will also suffer their revenge. None of them will survive, including me." Chu-Li's expression darkened. Hui Qing said, "Supreme spirit beasts are famous for being overbearing. They won't care why you kill the spirit tiger. As long as you kill the spirit tiger, anyone who has anything to do with you will die. They'll all be killed. Even the entire Ji dynasty might be destroyed." "No way?" Shao Shi was shocked. "Destroy the Ji dynasty?" Hui Qing scoffed. "Chu is from the Ji dynasty. What about Goddess Attraction Mountain?" Chu frowned. "There's the golden dragon there to protect it. It might still be there." Hui Qing nodded. "That depends on the golden dragon. If the golden dragon wants to protect it, the other supreme spirit beasts will spare it out of respect. Otherwise they'll be killed." "That's too much." Shao Shi scoffed. "Supreme spirit beasts are too much." Hui Qing scoffed. "Those below the great enlightened master can't provoke supreme spirit beasts. Let me give you a piece of advice. Even if you can kill them, don't kill them." "Understood." Chu nodded slowly. Hui Qing said, "Don't kill Song Wuji's descendants too." "Could Song Wuji be the great enlightened master?" Chu frowned. Hui Qing shook her head. "Not yet, but there's hope." "All right." Chu sighed and said helplessly, "I can't kill this and that. It seems like even becoming an enlightened master is still very frustrating. This world is really," all of a sudden, he felt a surge of frustration in his chest. He wanted to howl at the sky and break all restraints so that he could be free and unrestrained. Hui Qing scoffed. "I thought you were a smart person, but now I know how naive you are. Do you think becoming an enlightened master will give you freedom? There's no such thing as freedom in this world. You'll only be free when you cultivate." Chu looked at Hui Qing and nodded helplessly. "You're right, master." Hui Qing said, "Shao Qi doesn't understand this. She's so obsessed with love that she can't wholeheartedly pursue the path." Chu was stunned. He then smiled. Master, are you asking my wife to abandon me to pursue the path? That's right. Hui Qing nodded. If you can achieve the path, you'll naturally become a cultivation partner. If you can't, instead of separating in the future, it's better to separate now. Chu Li shook his head. Master, you're wrong. Everyone will die eventually. Instead of dying in the future, it's better to die now. Humph. Hui Qing glanced at him in disdain and shook her head. She looked like a rotten tree that could not be carved. Shao Qi pursed her lips and chuckled. Master, you don't have to persuade me anymore. The path of cultivation should be done step by step. Letting nature take its course is the path. Follow the flow to become immortal, follow the flow to become an immortal. The path of cultivation isn't something that can be done with the flow. Hui Qing waved her hand. Forget it, I can't convince you. You'll have to figure everything out yourself. I'm going to rest now. As soon as she finished speaking, she lightly floated away. Chu Li let out a sigh of relief. Shao Qi pursed her lips and smiled. Don't worry. Chu Li grabbed her hand and shook his head. Madam, I'm going to isolate myself from today onwards. I'm going to integrate what I've learned. All right, I'm going to isolate myself too. Shao Qi smiled. Shao Shi said, I have the same intention. Let's go to Goddess Attraction Mountain. It's the quietest there. Chu Li said. Shao Qi nodded. Shao Shi waved her hand. You guys go ahead. I'm fine here. Shao Qi was annoyed. Second sister, Shao Shi said, why would I go and stir up trouble? Besides, you guys are an eyesore. We're going to isolate ourselves. We won't be together. Chu Li smiled. Shao Shi hesitated for a moment and nodded. All right then, I'll leave after giving you some instructions. Chapter 3574. At this point, he recalled the characteristics of the vermilion bird's fire and the spirit tiger's energy. They could devour all inner energy to strengthen themselves. Using this characteristic, he could make the spirit tiger's spiritual energy flow endlessly to help him. Although he could only attack once each time, it was enough to kill in a critical moment. He stood up and paced around with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the sky. The moonlight was like water, and Goddess Attraction Mountain was exceptionally quiet. Everything around him seemed to have stopped. After a while, he had a flash of inspiration and smiled. Standing where he was, a red beam of light shot up into the sky. The supreme diamond scripture circulated faster and faster, and the indestructible body of Vajra began to condense. It slowly shrunk from his defensive range to the two spiritual energies. Moreover, they surrounded each other, forming two spheres that enveloped the spiritual energies. With that, the two spiritual energies were completely imprisoned and could no longer cause harm. There was no need to constantly use the indestructible body of Vajra. He followed the idea he had and directed the spirit tiger's spiritual energy to the undersea chakra. In the undersea chakra, the supreme diamond scripture's inner energy surged like waves. The supreme diamond scripture's inner energy usually circulated in the 3 meridians and 7 chakras and had nothing to do with the other meridians. The supreme diamond scripture's inner energy drilled into the sphere formed by the indestructible body of Vajra. The supreme diamond scripture's inner energy activated the indestructible body of Vajra, so it easily entered the sphere and merged with the spirit tiger's spiritual energy. Boom! It was like pouring oil on a fire. The spirit tiger's spiritual energy suddenly grew to twice its original size. The supreme diamond scripture's inner energy was unusually pure and was extremely effective in strengthening it. In the blink of an eye, it grew to twice its original size. Chu Li was overjoyed. With this, he did not have to worry about the spirit tiger's spiritual energy dissipating. As long as there was a lack of spiritual energy, he could immediately use the supreme diamond scripture to add more. He wanted to laugh out loud. With the help of the spirit tiger's spiritual energy, his strength increased again. Even if he faced a celestial or even Song Jifan, he would be able to crush them. Thinking about this, he wanted to find Song Jifan immediately. Before this, he was the one who provoked him. This time, it was his turn. If he could obtain the heaven-murdering script, he could enter the 100,000 hills again. He calmed himself down and placed the vermilion bird's fire into his heart chakra. Using the omniscient mirror, Chu Li saw that Shao Qi and Shao Shi were both concentrating on channeling their energy. They were in a good state, so it was best not to disturb them. He pondered for a while before he wrote a letter to Shao Qi. Then, he suddenly disappeared and reappeared in his own courtyard in the public house. Xue Ling could sense his presence the moment he appeared. She was dressed in a loose nightgown with her long hair fluttering in the wind. "Master, if you don't come back soon, Chongming Town will be in chaos." The omniscient mirror scanned the surroundings and saw the situation in Chongming Town. He frowned and snorted. "That's quite a lot." He saw 10 celestial men in Chongming Town. They were shrouded in a hazy white light like a white veil. It blocked the omniscient mirror's observation, but it also revealed their identities. They were all celestial men. "Are they causing a ruckus?" Chu Li scoffed. Xue Ling nodded lightly. "They have injured more than 10 of our protectors. We could not suppress them. Master Shao is already injured." Chu Li sneered. "You really know how to pick the right time." "I did not dare to disturb Master Zhao's isolated cultivation. I told them that after 10 days, Master Shao will settle the score with them." Xue Ling said. "They managed to drag it out. Tomorrow is the last day." Chu Li smiled. "Fortunately, I'm back now." How are the protectors?" "They were saved with the spirit blessing pill," Xue Ling said. Chu Li's face immediately darkened. "They killed them?" "Yes." Xue Ling nodded lightly. She frowned and said, "They were not polite at all. It was obvious that they wanted to provoke you, Master Shao. After that, Master Shao did not show up and thought that I was telling the truth. However, they caused a ruckus in Chongming Town and caused a foul atmosphere in the town. Our public house has lost its dignity." Chu Li's face darkened even more. It was like iron and stone, dark and hard. Xue Ling felt that the air had solidified. She could hardly breathe. Fortunately, she was a grandmaster and did not have to worry about suffocation. Chu Li scoffed. "They dared to cause such a ruckus. It seems that they are fearless. These celestial beings dared to cause such a ruckus because of their identities. They felt that Chu Li would not be able to kill them and that they were more powerful than enlightened masters. They felt that they could do whatever they wanted in this realm without fear. Other than them killing each other, the remaining enlightened masters and grandmasters were not worth mentioning." Xue Ling nodded. "This is the first time such a situation has happened. They are so unscrupulous and merciless. Where is Master Shao Taiying?" Chu Li did not see Xiao Taiying. Xue Ling said, "Master Shao Taiying has gone to the other public houses to contact them. They want to work together to get rid of them." Chu Li said slowly, "Go and spread the news. I will meet them tomorrow at noon at Sky Inn." "Yes," Xue Ling quickly said. She hesitated for a moment. Master Chu Li's gloomy face relaxed. He smiled. "Why? Are you afraid that I can't defeat them?" "Yes," Xue Ling said softly. "These people's cultivation level is very high. They are so unscrupulous. They must have something to rely on. Moreover, there are many of them. We must be careful." Chu Li said, "I have learned something from my isolated cultivation. Don't worry." "Yes." Xue Ling let out a sigh of relief and retreated lightly. The moonlight fell on the Glory's Will tree. It was as if it was absorbed by the tree. The tree was exceptionally bright. At first glance, it looked like a silver tree. Chu Li looked at the Glory's Will tree calmly and chuckled. Could there be someone's shadow behind this? It was already late autumn. The noon sun was especially bright. It warmed one's face. Outside Sky Inn, there was a dense crowd. It almost filled up the streets and alleys. When Chu Li left the public house, both sides of the street were already filled with people. When they saw Chu Li, they immediately closed fist, saluted, and waved. Chu Li closed fist, saluted, and smiled. He walked forward. His white robe fluttered in the wind. He was indescribably calm and at ease. Under the gaze of the crowd, Chu Li walked to the third floor of Sky Inn. The upper floor was already full of people. Everyone had received the news that at noon, Chief Chu Li of the public house would be coming to Sky Inn. These martial arts masters who suddenly appeared in Chongming Town had high cultivation levels. They beat up the protectors of the public house. The High Duke's public house, which had always been majestic, had now become a weakling that was beaten to the point where they could not even fight back. This made the people of Chongming Town feel extremely disappointed. The sense of security and the arrogance they had towards the martial arts masters had disappeared in an instant. Even though the High Duke's public house was beaten to a sorry state and protectors of the public house kept falling, the High Duke's public house did not withdraw their protectors. There were always protectors walking on the street. When they were beaten to death, another protector would immediately take their place. The people were touched and angry at these outsiders. All the people still had a glimmer of hope, because Chief Chu Li did not appear. Some people said that Chief Chu Li was afraid and did not dare to appear because he did not have the confidence to defeat his opponent. This kind of rumor spread quickly in the town. Many people believed it because these outsiders were really too strong. Later, Xue Ling spread the news that 10 days later, Chu Li would come out of isolated cultivation to settle the score with the people. Only then did the crazy spread of the rumor stop. The people's hope was greatly increased. This was because of Chu Li's prestige. Chapter 3575. Who do you think you are to criticize my father? Ling Shoren's expression changed as he glared at Chu Li. The god's field suddenly became intense, as if a knife was cutting Chu Li's skin but could not cut through. The indestructible body of diamond allowed him to face the god's field calmly without fear. Chu Li chuckled. Why can't I criticize the late emperor? He died for no reason and in such a humiliating manner. Should I praise him? He was ambushed and killed by a few celestials. Ling Shoren scoffed. If it were you, you would have died too. Chu Li laughed and shook his head. Don't you know how many celestials I killed, Your Majesty? A few celestials ganged up on me, 10? 9. Ling Shoren scoffed. There are differences between celestials. The ones you killed were just small fries, but the ones who ambushed my father were different. They were all elites among the celestials. Chu Li waved his hand. He was killed without any preparation. Your Majesty ascended the throne in a hurry and was unprepared. Can Your Majesty handle the chaos of the celestials with your current strength? Of course. Ling Shoren scoffed proudly. Chu Li shook his head. I don't think you can do it. Arrogant. Ling Shoren narrowed his eyes and sneered. Today, I will let you know the immensity of heaven and earth. Chu Li said, Are you here to kill me, Your Majesty? It's just a sparring session. Ling Shoren said. Chu Li chuckled. You dare not admit to what you did. You don't look like a ruler at all. All right, so what if I kill you? Ling Shoren said. Do you think you don't deserve to die? Chu Li tilted his head and looked at him with interest. Aren't you afraid that Goddess Attraction Mountain will cause trouble for you? The immortal Attraction Mountain was his backer, and it was also what people feared the most about him. Half of the reason he was able to run amok until now was due to his martial arts, and the other half was due to the Goddess Attraction Mountain's strong backing, Zhou Dunli, and even the Golden Dragon's deterrence. Otherwise, a few Empyrean gods would have likely joined forces to kill him. So what if it's Goddess Attraction Mountain? Ling Shoren scoffed. Goddess Attraction Mountain hasn't appeared for many years. It's just an empty shell to scare people. Ha ha! Chu Li laughed and shook his head. Ling Shoren scoffed, Is it wrong? Chu Li sighed and said, "Your Majesty, the ignorant are truly fearless. If the late emperor was as brave as you are, I'm afraid he would have found someone to kill me long ago." "What do you mean by that?" Ling Shoren frowned. Lu Yurong said, "Your Majesty, I can testify that Goddess Attraction Mountain is not an empty shell. It's just that there hasn't been anything worth making a move on. More importantly, even if Goddess Attraction Mountain were to make a move, outsiders wouldn't know. So Your Majesty, please think twice before you act." "Yurong, you disappoint me." Ling Shoren shook his head and looked at Lu Yurong with pity. "You could have been my right-hand man, my only confidant. Your Majesty's favor, I do not deserve it, and I do not have the fortune to enjoy it," Lu Yurong said coldly. Ling Shoren sighed. "I know that you've been complaining about what I did in the past, but I was just taking advantage of the situation at that time. How could I really let you marry into the Fu dynasty? How could I bear to do that? I thought that since you're so intelligent, Yurong, you would be able to understand my painstaking efforts. I didn't expect you to fall in love with Chu Li so easily." Chu Li smiled. "I still have to thank Your Majesty for granting me my wish." Ling Shoren scoffed. "But I know, Yurong, you've always wanted to help me. It's just that I didn't personally ask you for it, so you couldn't bring yourself to do it. Today, I'll let go of my pride. Yurong, come back with me." Lu Yurong shook her head and was too lazy to say anything else. Seeing Ling Shoren like this, she felt a little sad. Was this Ling Shoren's nature, or was it because of power that made him like this? It was as if he was a completely different person from King Jing. Ling Shoren frowned. "Yurong, you don't agree?" "I don't agree," Lu Yurong said lightly. Chu Li said, "Your Majesty, Yurong is my wife. Shouldn't you ask for my opinion? You're just a guy in name, a shield." Ling Shoren glanced at Chu Li and laughed coldly. "Others may not know, but do you think I don't? She's such a proud woman, why would she share a husband with another woman?" Lu Yurong said, "Your Majesty, you're wrong. I'm really from the Chu family." "Yurong, my eyes are still useful." Ling Shoren pointed at his eyes and smiled. "You're still a virgin, so you're not really married to Chu Li. It's just a temporary measure to use him as a shield." Chu Li frowned and scoffed. "Your Majesty, you really have a pair of sharp eyes." Ling Shoren scoffed in disdain. "Chu Li, do you really think that just because you're a little better in martial arts, all the women in the world will like you?" Chu Li said, "I don't deserve that." Ling Shoren waved his hand impatiently. "I'm talking to Yurong, go away." Chu Li laughed. Lu Yurong said, "If Your Majesty wants to talk about this, please don't say it. Also, although I can't lose my virginity because of my cultivation, it's not like what Your Majesty said. If there's nothing else, Your Majesty, please go back. Forgive me for not seeing you off." Ling Shoren stared at Lu Yurong without blinking. Lu Yurong responded coldly. Chu Li looked at Ling Shoren with a smile. He was suddenly curious about Ling Shoren's thoughts. It seemed like his feelings for Lu Yurong were complicated. She wasn't just a subordinate or a niece, there might be other feelings mixed in. Lu Yurong was indifferent and ignored him. Ling Shoren took a deep breath and said, "If that's the case, I'll kill Chu Li first, then I'll tell you in detail." Lu Yurong frowned. Chu Li waved his hand to stop her and smiled. "Your Majesty, why do you gather? Straight away. You're asking for it." Ling Shoren scoffed and slammed his palm. Chu Li's expression did not change. The God Slayer sword appeared. Ling Shoren screamed, his body trembled and fell straight down. The God Slayer sword was useless against celestials and spirit beasts, but it was enough to deal with Ling Shoren. He could already tell that Ling Shoren's cultivation level was not high enough. Although he was an enlightened master, Chu Li did not care. After Ling Shoren screamed, he realized that it was embarrassing for him to scream like that. His face turned red and he glared at Chu Li, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Chu Li chuckled and shot another God Slayer sword. Ling Shoren grunted. His yellow robe fluttered even though there was no wind. His eyes were bloodshot. 2 God Slayer swords had severely injured him, driving him into a frenzy. Chu Li suddenly pressed on the sword. Suddenly, a turbulent aura poured down like a broken dam, pressuring Ling Shoren so much that he could not breathe. The crouching Tiger Divine's sword slowly came out of its scabbard and slowly approached him. Ling Shoren widened his eyes and tried to dodge, but his body was bound by an invisible force. He could only watch as the crouching Tiger Divine's sword came closer and closer to his forehead. Chu Li suddenly withdrew his sword. The violent aura disappeared as if it was just a dream. Chu Li's hand left the scabbard and shook his head with a smile. You can't even take one hit. Your Majesty, you should go back and cultivate. Don't get ambushed by Celestials again. All right. Ling Shoren looked at Lu Yurong's cold expression and gritted his teeth. I've learned a lot. We shall meet again. Chapter 3576. He melted into the void and disappeared without a trace. Chu Li shook his head. His Majesty is really impatient. Be careful, he might do something desperate. Lu Yurong frowned and said, I didn't expect him to hate you so much. He can't wait to get rid of you. If he doesn't succeed this time, he won't give up. What other tricks does he have? Chu Li asked. Lu Yurong pondered and said, they will probably join forces with Meng Xiaoqi. The celestial beings hate you to the core. Meng Xiaoqi will find a few celestial beings and they will definitely be able to work together. If the 2 groups join forces, can you handle them? We really have to be careful, Chu Li said seriously. Lu Yurong sighed. I didn't expect the late emperor to be killed so easily. Even now, she still found it hard to believe. Ling Wufeng was a cold and emotionless monarch. He was cunning and very difficult to scheme against, yet he was besieged by Celestials and had no choice but to ascend to heaven. Chu Li said, Our current emperor is an impatient person. Lu Yurong was stunned and looked at him. She was smart enough to understand the hidden meaning behind Chu Li's words. Chu Li sighed. I hope I'm wrong. It can't be, right? Lu Yurong frowned at him. No matter how rebellious he is, he wouldn't do something like this. Who exactly is Meng Xiaoqi? Any news? Chu Li asked. Lu Yurong nodded lightly. The leader of the demonic blade sect, and the Ling family was originally from the demonic blade sect. Chu Li was surprised. Lu Yurong said, the ancestor of the Ling family was originally a disciple of the demonic blade clan. The student surpassed the master and eventually conquered this land. It could be said that he was a genius. The demonic blade clan had disappeared for thousands of years, but they did not go extinct. They trusted the leader of the demonic blade clan deeply. Chu Li laughed. He had guessed wrongly. I don't think Meng Xiaoqi would do something like that. After all, Ling Wufeng is a disciple of the Fiend Blade sect. That might not be the case. Chu Li shook his head. He felt that there was something fishy about Ling Wufeng's death. It was really difficult for outsiders to surround and kill him. After all, heavenly deities were extremely sensitive to danger. Even if Celestials wanted to surround and kill him, they would not be able to block his senses, unless it was a trap set by someone close to him. If Ling Shoren was in danger, Ling Wufeng would intervene even if he sensed that something was amiss. Lu Yurong frowned. Do you want me to check? Forget it. Chu Li sighed. Since we've already ascended to the Grandmaster's boundary, if Ling Shoren really did it, Ling Wufeng will come after him when we reach the Grandmaster's boundary. He won't be able to escape. Lu Yurong said, that will be many years in the future. A heavenly deity had been in this world for 60 years. Who could remember the things that happened after several decades? No matter how deep the hatred was, it had already pretty much dissipated. Moreover, this was between father and son. Chu Li said, this is a bad start. The Grandmasters won't just stand by and watch, will they? The realm beyond Avalon might not necessarily care so much. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, "Let's just pretend we don't know anything about this. If we really dig it out, he will definitely take revenge crazily. Besides, this is just a guess." "That's the only way." Chu Li nodded. "Will they go against the imperial residence of King An next? Based on my understanding of him, he will definitely continue to attack." Lu Yurong nodded firmly. Chu Li sighed. "How troublesome. If it really doesn't work, I'll have to get rid of him. If he dies, the Ji dynasty will be in turmoil." Lu Yurong frowned. "Su An ascended the throne in a hurry?" Chu Li thought about it and slowly shook his head. Based on Su An's current cultivation level, he would not be too strong after becoming an enlightened master. Once he became an enlightened master, he would become the target of everyone. Without a strong cultivation level, he would be bullied everywhere. It would be better not to become an enlightened master. Lu Yurong said, "Then we still have to keep him." Chu Li could only nod. "Follow me to Goddess Attraction Mountain." "I'm not going into isolated cultivation," Lu Yurong said. Chu Li frowned. "The world is in chaos now. Asuras are rampant and there are even celestials who do whatever they want. I have the ability to protect myself," Lu Yurong said. Chu Li scoffed. "It's not like you don't know how powerful Asuras are. The Asuras from the Grandmasters are even stronger. They can even kill enlightened masters. If I leave, what about the High Duke's public house?" Lu Yurong shook her head. Chu Li was tied down by the High Duke's public house and so was she. Chu Li did not force her. "All right then. Once you see an Asura, call me immediately. Don't try to deal with them by yourself." "All right." Lu Yurong nodded helplessly. Chu Li waved his hand as a farewell and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared at Goddess Attraction Mountain. After observing with the omniscient mirror, he found Master Zhou Dunli sitting in the basilica, motionless like an old monk. Dong Jianxin sat motionless in front of him. Dong Jianxin was solemn. Chu Li entered the basilica and closed fist saluted. "Chu Li, you're here." Zhou Dunli opened his eyes. Dong Jianxin opened his eyes as well. Chu Li came and sat beside them. He smiled. "Master, why do you have time to come back? Isn't the Grandmasters in chaos?" It seems like you know something," Zhou Dunli said. Chu Li looked at his serious expression and smiled. "Did something big happen?" Zhou Dunli said, "Chu Li, I'm going to heaven." Chu Li was stunned. He shook his head. "Master, you can't be saying that you're going to pass on the position of Hill Master, right?" "Yes." Zhou Dunli nodded. Chu Li's smile faded. "Did something happen?" "I need to focus on dealing with the Grandmasters," Zhou Dunli said. "The situation is not looking good. Master can go now. There's nothing big here." Chu Li said. "It's okay to run both ways, right?" "It's not the same," Zhou Dunli said. "As it is now, I can only use half of my strength in the Grandmasters. Only when I step into the Grandmasters will I be able to use my full strength. Then pass it on to senior brother," Chu Li said. "I'm only one step away from becoming an enlightened master. I don't want to be apatheicized." "You," Zhou Dunli sighed. "Jianxin is not suitable for apatheicized now." Chu Li said, "Master, can you improve senior brother's cultivation level through the enlightenment technique?" "It's difficult." Zhou Dunli shook his head. Chu Li smiled. "I've seen many methods of enlightenment. For example, the Ji dynasty's crown prince has now become an emperor. Fa Yuan from the Tempest Temple can greatly improve their cultivation level through enlightenment. They can become Emperor Wu and apatheicized. Enlightenment is not a foolproof method." Zhou Dunli sighed. "The risks involved are hard to predict. Not to mention, not everyone can withstand the power of empowerment. You need to be strong enough to receive the empowerment. Humans are like tools. Everyone has a limit. Once the limit is exceeded, the empowerment is equivalent to killing." Chu Li said, Senior brother can't withstand enlightenment? Even if he receives enlightenment, it will be difficult for him to reach your level. Zhou Dunli shook his head. Now that we're in chaos, without a strong enough cultivation level, becoming an enlightened master can easily lead to death. Chu Li smiled bitterly. Master won't say that I have to become an enlightened master, right? Zhou Dunli nodded slowly. Dong Jian said, Junior brother, the bigger picture is more important. With your current cultivation level, you can already kill enlightened masters. Once you become an enlightened master, how strong will you be? You'll be invincible. Chapter 3577. Chu Li was curious. Zhou Dunli said, The realm beyond heavens will soon issue a realm beyond heavens order in this world, offering a bounty for the heart of Azura. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. The Grand Master can destroy the heart of Azura? No. Zhou Dunli shook his head. The heart of Azura cannot be destroyed. The only way is to suppress it. Chu Li sighed. He did not expect that even the Grand Masters could not do anything to the heart of Azura. Zhou Dunli said, If you suppress it for 100 years, the heart of Azura will weaken by 1 level. Although it won't kill it, it will greatly damage the Azura's strength. If you suppress it for 200 or even 300 years, the Azura that is reborn will not be able to pose a threat for 100 years. It will take a few hundred years for it to recover its original strength. Chu Li nodded. Any heart of Azura will do? An Azura that can only descend from the realm beyond heaven. Zhou Dunli said, The original Azuras of this realm were not strong enough to pose a threat, so we ignored them. But most of the hearts of Azura in this world have been taken away by the Grandmasters, Chu Li said. He told Zhou Dunli about the Tempest Temple's demon subduing pagoda. Zhou Dunli shook his head and sighed, Looks like the Azura realm has also made a move. However, these Heart of Azura won't be able to take shape in such a short period of time. They won't affect the battle much. Chu Li asked, What benefits does the Grandmaster's badge have? If you act according to the Beyond Heaven decree, the rewards will be unimaginably generous. You will definitely receive great benefit. Zhou Dunli sighed. If you can become an enlightened master, you will be able to act according to the Beyond Heaven decree. If I'm not an enlightened master, as a grandmaster, I can't follow orders. Not bad. Zhou Dunli said slowly, Grandmasters are not qualified to receive the Grandmaster's order. Enlightened masters are bound by the heavenly rules and are also rewarded by the heavenly rules. Grandmasters are not bound by the heavenly rules and are not rewarded. This is how the world works. Chu Li shook his head. Zhou Dunli said, You can already kill Azuras now. Once you become an enlightened master and kill a few more Azuras, the rewards will definitely be beyond your imagination. Once you enter the realm beyond heaven, your starting point will be far higher than others. This is also the fortune of our goddess attraction mountain. Master, I still want to become a god myself. Chu Li shook his head and said, I've persevered for so long and I'm about to succeed. I'm not willing to give up just a little bit more. Ah, you. Zhou Dunli looked at him helplessly. He knew Chu Li's temperament and knew that it would be difficult to convince him, but he still wanted to try. Dong Jianxin said unhappily, Junior apprentice brother, if you refuse, could it be that you want me to become a heavenly deity? Senior brother, there's nothing bad about becoming an enlightened master. If I become an enlightened master as well, our goddess attraction mountain will only have 2 enlightened masters. Chu Li chuckled. I know how capable I am. Dong Jianxin snorted. Becoming an enlightened master will only be a burden to Goddess Attraction Mountain. Chu Li turned to look at Zhou Dunli. Master, if senior brother becomes an enlightened master, what about the Golden Dragon? The Golden Dragon will follow me to the realm beyond heaven. Zhou Dunli shook his head and said, If something happens to Immortal Attraction Mountain, it will return, and I will return as well. This is what makes Immortal Attraction Mountain special. Chu Li smiled. That's right. With Master and the Golden Dragon around, who do we have to be afraid of? Senior brother, feel free to be a god. I don't want to be a burden. Dong Jianxin snorted. Besides, you're just thinking about the good. With my abilities, even if I receive empowerment, it will be difficult for me to become the Imperial Emperor. There's still you, junior brother. How can I be an enlightened master? Zhou Dunli nodded lightly. Chu Li laughed. So I've become a hindrance. Chu Li. Zhou Dunli sighed. The situation in the realm beyond heaven is urgent. If Goddess Attraction Mountain fails, Chu Li hurriedly said, has it reached that stage? Zhou Dunli nodded slowly. Chu Li frowned. Will the realm beyond heaven lose? It's not impossible, Zhou Dunli said. Chu Li asked, if the realm beyond heaven loses, what will happen? The realm beyond heaven will be occupied by the Azura boundary. From now on, our world will belong to the Azura boundary. Zhou Dunli's expression was solemn. The Azura will become the masters. There will be no more enlightened masters. Our people will become the slaves of the Azura? Chu Li asked. Zhou Dunli nodded slowly. It will become a paradise for the Azura. Doesn't that mean there's no hope? Dong Jianxin asked. Will we humans never have a chance to make a name for ourselves? Zhou Dunli slowly said, there might be other worlds like this. The Azura need enough murderous intent to increase their cultivation level. That's why humans won't go extinct. Instead, they'll become more prosperous. After 100 years, even humans won't resist anymore because the Azura are usually in human form. No one will know that they're in the crowd. People might even think that they're enlightened masters. Chu Li asked, why can't the realm beyond heaven defeat the Azura boundary? The Azura are too difficult to deal with. Although there are many grandmasters, there will always be casualties. On the other hand, the Azura are immortal. Zhou Dunli shook his head. That's why we sent people down to provide reinforcements. Unfortunately, distant water can't quench the present thirst. But don't worry, there won't be any results within 100 years. Chu Li let out a sigh of relief. 100 years was enough for him to become an enlightened master. If he couldn't advance within 100 years, he wouldn't have any hope of becoming an enlightened master. He sighed. It's hard to go against the general trend. Master, don't force yourself. How's Song Wuji? Song Wuji is now a hero and his reputation is growing. Because his cultivation level is stronger and his murderous nature is stronger. The Azura didn't gain an advantage against him. Instead, they lost many of them. Zhou Dunli said, that's why you shouldn't provoke Song Jifan now. If Song Wuji directly descends and kills you, the realm beyond heaven won't say anything. Chu Li frowned. How does the realm beyond heaven maintain the heavenly rules? There's the Elders Guild. Zhou Dunli said, there's a total of 999 elders. If these elders decide that someone is guilty, it'll be a violation of the heavenly rules. There are so many things in the world. Can these elders take care of them all? Chu Li asked. Actually, there aren't as many as you think. Zhou Dunli said. How many enlightened masters are there in total? Besides, most enlightened masters follow the rules and won't violate the heavenly rules. Chu Li slowly nodded. Since he knew that the heavenly rules were strict, he naturally wouldn't act recklessly. Moreover, there were only 8 enlightened masters in this world. It was indeed very worry-free. Chu Li, it's not about whether you want to be the hill master or not. It's about whether you have to be the hill master. Zhou Dunli sighed and shook his head. Think about it. If you don't become the hill master, Goddess Attraction Mountain will lose its enlightened master. There are many grandmasters in the Fu dynasty, and there's no lack of rising talents. There are also many who have seen the heart. Even if Jian Fan uses the enlightenment technique, he won't be able to reach the peak. Chu Li smiled bitterly. He was forced into a corner and had no other choice. Dong Jian thought, Junior brother, I'm useless as your senior brother. I've implicated you. His face was extremely gloomy. At this moment, he hated himself. Chapter 3578. Why not? Sun Mingyue was surprised. This is a technique to extend one's lifespan. It's better than dying, right? Because the ageless longevity technique consumes one's lifespan to extend one's lifespan. It will consume one's entire flesh and soul. It's really cruel. Chu Li shook his head. I can't take it. I heard that the ageless longevity technique is extremely powerful. Once it's mastered, it can consume everything in the world. Sun Mingyue said. Everything? Chu Li frowned. Including spirit herbs? That's natural. Sun Mingyue nodded. But if your boundary is not high enough, you can only consume living things, including humans, spirit beasts, and even wild beasts. You can consume wild beasts now, right? Yes, I can. Chu Li nodded. But it's useless. Even if I consume 100 wild beasts, I won't become stronger or increase my lifespan. Sun Mingyue was confused. Chu Li said, at my boundary, I need to consume grandmasters or spirit beasts. If I can consume an enlightened master, I'll become stronger. There's such a restriction. Sun Mingyue nodded in realization. I thought it was strange too. If it's that easy, then the ageless longevity technique is really scary. Chu Li sighed. It's already scary now. Think about it. If Li Meng cultivates the ageless longevity technique as her master, you can help her capture a few grandmasters or celestials. Let Li Meng consume them. Li Meng will become strong in an instant. Come listen. Song Jifan smiled. But let me tell you in advance. No matter what, I won't agree to it. I just want to listen. Chu Li said, I want to learn the ageless longevity technique. Ha 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 ha. Song Jifan laughed. I knew you're going to die soon. Look at you, you look like you're going to die soon. It's because of the heaven-murdering technique, right? Ha ha. He laughed maniacally. He bent over and slapped his knees. He was overjoyed. When he passed the heaven-murdering technique to Chu Li, he knew this day would come. As expected, it was time to show the old men in the church how wise their decision was. Chu Li stared at him coldly and watched him laugh maniacally. Chu Li, you deserve this. Song Jifan laughed until he was out of breath. Where's your prestige from back then? Come on, show me what you've got. Chu Li said calmly, I know the everlasting technique of the Changshan denomination. Ha ha, Song Jifan laughed again and shook his head. Ai, are you crazy? Did you suffer a qi deviation and hurt your head? Chu Li asked, You don't believe me? Do you think I should believe it? Song Jifan restrained his smile, shook his head, and sighed. All right, go back and find a good place to bury yourself. Let's meet again in the realm beyond heaven. Chu Li frowned. Song Jifan continued with a smile. But when we meet again in the human realm beyond heavens, you will be the lowest celestial being, and I will be a celestial being. One is in the sky and the other is on the ground. The difference is like clouds and mud. I don't think there will be any chance for us to fight. Chu Li scoffed and said, Do you want me to start chanting the incantation of the ageless longevity technique now? Sure, recite it for me, Song Jifan said with a smile. Chu Li said, Remember what you said. He glanced behind Song Jifan. They heard it. Don't regret it. Song Jifan's face instantly darkened, and he said in a deep voice, Come out. His voice fell, but there was no movement. The surroundings were empty except for the breeze, and there was no other reaction. Then don't blame me for being ruthless. Song Jifan sneered and pressed on the long sword at his waist. Suddenly, an invincible aura surged out. 4 middle-aged men appeared in the void. Their bodies were reserved and did not reveal a trace of vitality. They looked like they did not know martial arts. Chu Li frowned and took a step back. He felt danger. These 4 middle-aged men were powerhouses among the celestial beings. They were slightly weaker than the 3 he killed with the Sky Killer sword, but they were already very strong. He was no match for them now. Sun Mingyue cooperated well with him. When she saw his appearance, she knew what to do. She also took a step back and revealed Song Jifan. It was Song Jifan against the 4 middle-aged men. Chapter 3579. He used the heavenly king palm. Chu Li shouted, "How dare you! How dare you attack the temple leader!" As he finished, he stood in front of Elder Fong and lowered his body. He performed the sacrificial power and used the heavenly king palm. Once the heavenly king palm was used, it instantly condensed into a solid palm print and went against Guozhangjing's heavenly king palm. Bam! A muffled sound was heard. The 2 palm energies were evenly matched and both dispersed. Guozhangjing was surprised and immediately realized that Chu Li used the sacrificial power. He shook his head and said, "What a good subordinate." Again. He used the heavenly king palm again. This time, the heavenly king palm gathered the surrounding spiritual energy and instantly turned into a white jade palm print. It was crystal clear as if it was solid. Chu Li also used the heavenly king palm. His heavenly king palm absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy and turned into a solid palm print. However, it was not as solid as the white jade palm print. It was finally dispersed by the white jade palm print and continued flying towards Chu Li at an even faster speed. The heavenly king palm was very strange. The more it was obstructed, the faster it became. It was as if the resistance was turned into a driving force. Bam! Elder Fong countered with her palm and dispersed the white jade palm print. She took a step back and her expression changed. "Senior Guo, you're trying to kill me." Her internal organs were flipped over and she felt like vomiting. She was already injured. Guozhangjing's palm was obviously trying to kill her. Guozhangjing shook his head and laughed. "You plotted against me and I still have to be merciful? Senior Guo, are you going against the Heaven's Punishment Hall?" Elder Fong asked calmly. Guozhangjing was sensitive and immediately noticed something was wrong. Her words seemed to be luring him to say that he was going against the Heaven's Punishment Hall so that he could find an excuse to attack them. He laughed coldly. "Why, are you going to use a treasure weapon against me? If Senior Guo insists on going against the Heaven's Punishment Hall, then we'll have to use our treasure weapon," Elder Fong said in a low voice. "Haha, I didn't expect young Fan to be so vicious." Guozhangjing laughed. "A woman's heart is the most vicious." Elder Fong suddenly smiled. "So Senior Guo, are you trying to go against the Heaven's Punishment Hall?" "That's right." Guozhangjing took a deep breath and slowly said, "I would like to experience your methods, little Fan." He knew that everything would be fine as long as he said some soft words, but he just couldn't say it. His rationality told him to say soft words, but his emotions made it impossible for him to say them. He had to be tough to the end. He didn't believe that he couldn't control a junior. Chu Li scoffed. "Hall Master, he must be trying to kill us." Elder Fong took out a jade pendant and flashed it at Guozhangjing. "Order of the Heaven's Punishment Hall." Guozhangjing's face darkened. Elder Fong scoffed, "Since Elder Guo insists on going against our Heavenly Punishment Hall, we can only use the hall order. Don't blame me for being ruthless." Humph. Suddenly, a snort sounded. The jade pendant in Elder Fong's hand immediately flew out. Elder Fong's expression changed drastically as she reached out to snatch it back. However, the jade pendant shot to the side at an incredible speed. Chu Li pushed his palm out. Bang! The Heavenly King palm accurately struck the jade pendant. The speed of the jade pendant slowed down, allowing Elder Fong to catch up to it. Elder Fong reached out to grab it but was blocked by an invisible force. Elder Fong then flew backward and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He glared at the void with hatred. An old man appeared in the void. His face was rosy and his eyebrows were snow-white. He was tall and thin and had an aura of an immortal. He gently took off the Heaven's Punishment Hall order and shook his head with a sigh. "Why do you have to do this? We're all brothers in the church. Don't hurt the harmony," Chu Li said hatefully. "Elder Guo, you don't hurt the harmony when you show off your power. Do you think we hurt the harmony just because we fight? Aren't you Celestials being too domineering? We're not people that you can bully as you please. Yo, you're not young anymore, but you're still so courageous. How rare." The old man smiled as he sized him up and shook his head. "It's just that your cultivation level is a little lacking. I have a set of the ultimate Heavenly King technique here. Take it and learn it." As soon as he finished speaking, he casually tossed a thin booklet out from his sleeve. Chu Li was stunned and immediately pushed his palm forward. Smack! The thin booklet was pushed back. The old man took the booklet in shock and looked at Chu Li in surprise. "You don't want to learn the ultimate Heavenly King technique? If you have the ultimate Heavenly King technique, the power of your Heavenly King palm will increase by a few times or even 10 times. With your Heavenly King palm's level of attainment, you'll immediately become a first-class master," Chu Li said in a low voice. "If I want an antique study, the church has it. I don't need to learn it from others." "You're quite ambitious." The old man was not angry. It was as if he would not be angry no matter what. He shook his head and said, "If you miss this opportunity, there won't be a next time. You should know that you're now a disciple of the Heaven's Punishment Hall. Don't even think about learning the ultimate Heavenly King technique. This is the antique study of the Heaven's Heaven Temple. It will never be leaked to outsiders." Chu Li said, "Then forget it. Don't you think it's a pity?" The old man asked with a smile. "Elder Qing, you don't have to worry. I'll find a way to let him learn the ultimate Heavenly King technique." Elder Fong landed far away and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She said hatefully, "Elder Qing is really ruthless." The old man in front of her was Qing Hao. He was also a senior of the Longevity Church and the former temple master of the Heaven Temple. The 4 people sent by founding Master Song to guard the Longevity Church were the former temple masters of the 4 temples. They had profound cultivation levels and knew the Longevity Church inside out. Logically speaking, they were the most suitable people. Unfortunately, these people were extremely annoying. They had their eyes set high and might even encounter the Heavenly Star Jade Medal. Chapter 3580. As soon as Chu Li shouted, he helplessly stopped his attack. He frowned and remained silent. If he were to attack now, he would be interrupting the Heaven's Punishment Hall and breaking the rules. He would be making the entire Heaven's Punishment Hall his enemy. He knew the Heaven's Punishment Hall very well. Once someone obstructed the Heaven's Punishment Hall, that person would be the entire Heaven's Punishment Hall's enemy. They would capture the person and punish him severely. Moreover, there was a powerful treasure in the Heaven's Punishment Hall that would only be used as a last resort. He was not confident that he could defend against it. This was different from killing Bailey Na out of the blue. Killing Bailey Na out of the blue could be said to be an accident, and it was just a personal grudge. Killing Bailey Na now would mean that Bailey Na was carrying out a mission from the Heaven's Punishment Hall. Bailey Na would be making the Heaven's Punishment Hall his enemy. Chu Li was already below the restaurant. He shouted towards the sky, "Jin Xianming, show yourself. If you come out now and follow me back, I can give you a lenient sentence. If you are stubborn and I take action myself, you will be punished according to the law." Jin Xianming was sitting in front of the window. He looked down at Chu Li and said, "I won't do anything. You just have to come up and take me away." "Come down yourself," Chu Li shouted. Jin Xianming shook his head. "I'm drunk. I can't walk." "Humph, looks like you're not giving up. You're forcing me to attack now," Chu Li said coldly. He unsheathed his sword as he finished. Jin Xianming quickly glanced at Guozhangjing, who was drinking in the corner with his head lowered, and shook his head helplessly. Why did this arrogant and domineering celestial being change his temper today? He actually allowed Chu Li to yell at him, but he did not care about it at all. Guozhangjing glared at Jin Xianming. Jin Xianming could not help but shiver. He immediately understood that his intention had been seen through by Guozhangjing. Now the best thing to do was to go downstairs and leave. Otherwise, if he continued to tangle with Bailey Na, he would definitely anger Guozhangjing, who would vent his anger on him. He shouted, "I'll be right down." He took out a silver ingot and placed it on the table. He then flew out of the window and landed in front of Chu Li. Chu Li sized Jin Xianming up. "Are you Jin Xianming?" "That's right." Jin Xianming gritted his teeth. He knew that if he were to fall into the hands of the Heavenly Punishment Hall, it would be difficult for him to escape the fate of having his cultivation crippled. Therefore, he must not fall into their hands. It was a pity that the floating mountain was now sealed and he couldn't escape. The only thing he could hope for was to delay for a few more days. One more free and unfettered day was one more day. He couldn't bear to part with the days of leisurely drinking, and the taste of those beautiful women made him even more infatuated. Once he landed in the hands of the Heavenly Punishment Hall, he would never have the chance to touch women again. When he thought of this, he felt extreme hatred towards the Heavenly Punishment Hall, and boundless killing intent arose within him. Chu Li muttered, "Then let's go." "Bailey Na, how dare you speak ill of Senior Gua?" Jin Xianming suddenly shouted. Chu Li could not help but laugh. "Do you think this will work? Don't waste your time. Bailey Na, are you saying that Senior Gua doesn't dare to stop you?" Jin Xianming snorted. Chu Li frowned as his killing intent rose. "You're looking for trouble." As soon as he finished speaking, he struck with his palm. Bang! The spiritual energy in the air condensed into a palm print. It was clear as if it was a real palm. It was the Heavenly King palm, and it hit Jin Xianming squarely. Jin Xianming spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He hissed, "You with the surname Bailey, are you trying to silence me? No matter how useless Senior Gua is, he's still a senior master of the Longevity Church. How can you be so rude?" Chu Li shook his head and looked at Guozhangjing, who had appeared beside him. He fist saluted. "Greetings, Senior Gua. You think that I don't dare to touch you?" Guozhangjing said coldly. Chu Li smiled. "Senior Gua, don't tell me you didn't see that he's trying to provoke you on purpose so that he can escape?" "You know the Heavenly King palm?" Guozhangjing asked. Chu Li nodded. "I cultivated it by chance. Unfortunately, I didn't get the unique Heavenly King technique, so I couldn't grasp its essence. It's rare to cultivate the Heavenly King palm to this level without the unique Heavenly King technique. Coincidentally, I'm also familiar with the Heavenly King palm. Let's learn from each other." As soon as he finished speaking, he did not wait for Chu Li to reply and struck with his palm. The Heavenly King palm gathered spiritual energy in the air and instantly formed an extremely realistic palm print. It was as fast as lightning and arrived in front of Chu Li in an instant. Chu Li used the Heavenly King palm too. The two Heavenly King palms collided in the air. Chu Li flew backward and caught up with Jin Xianming, who was in the air. Chu Li spat out a mouthful of blood and hit Jin Xianming's chest with the Heavenly King palm. Jin Xianming flew out again and spat out blood in the air. What a profound cultivation level. I'm impressed. Another palm. Guozhangjing shouted. Bam! A green shadow flashed and Elder Fong suddenly appeared in front of Chu Li. She pushed her palms forward and collided with the Heavenly King palm. She staggered 2 steps and her face turned red for a while before returning to normal. She said coldly, "Senior Gua, do you know your crime for obstructing the Heaven's Punishment Hall's disciple?" Guozhangjing's face darkened and he said coldly, "You want to punish me? Elder Gua, do you admit that you're a disciple of the Longevity sect?" Elder Fong asked. Guizhongjing said slowly, "Of course I'm a disciple of the longevity sect." "That's good. As the former Lord of the Heaven's Punishment Hall, you should know the rules of the Heaven's Punishment Hall, right?" Elder Fong scoffed. "Why, you want to cripple my martial arts." Guizhongjing sneered and said lightly, "Or palace punishment." He was familiar with the longevity sect's rules and naturally knew the punishment for raping and killing an innocent girl. Crippling his martial arts and the root of his offspring. From then on, he would be an incomplete man and live a life worse than death. Elder Fong said, "There are no exceptions for the disciples of the longevity sect, including you, Senior Guo." Guizhongjing was so angry that he laughed. He did not expect young Fan to have such courage and murderous intent. She hated him so much. Could this be a trap? A trap targeted at him? Elder Fong said lightly, "If Senior Guo doesn't want to be punished, that's easy. You just have to admit that you're no longer a disciple of the longevity sect." "Of course I'm a disciple of the longevity sect." Guizhongjing shook his head and said, "However, it's impossible for me to be punished. Who said that I obstructed the Heaven's Punishment Hall's disciple? Did this guy escape?" As he finished, he appeared in front of Jin Xianming in a flash. Jin Xianming was still flying in the air when he was suddenly pulled in front of Elder Fong. He was terrified. He had been afraid of this moment. When it suddenly came, he realized that he was even more afraid. Guizhongjing slammed his palm down and Jin Xianming collapsed to the ground. Only his eyes were darting around, showing fear and pleading. Elder Fong frowned. Guizhongjing chuckled and said, "As for Bailey Na, he's only sparring with the Heavenly King Palm. His Heavenly King Palm is quite proficient. It's a pity that he doesn't cultivate the Supreme Heavenly King technique. In my opinion, he should cultivate it. After all, the Heavenly King Hall only exists in name." "Thank you for your concern, Senior Guo," Elder Fong said coldly. "However, Senior Guo, do you think you can get away with this? What kind of punishment is it to intentionally hurt a disciple of the Heaven's Punishment Hall?" Guizhongjing's face darkened. He had already given Elder Fong a way out of this embarrassing situation. However, she insisted on going against him. Did she think that he was soft? Easy to bully. Chapter 3582. "Alright, I'd like to see how far Suan can go," Lu Yurong said slowly. Not only did this incident hurt Chu Li's reputation, but it also hurt her heart. She did not expect that her hard work would lead to such an outcome. She had always been able to see through people's hearts and was wise, but she still ended up like this. Therefore, she no longer had any loyalty towards the Crown Prince and the Emperor. Instead, she wanted to take revenge. If Suan could take the throne, she would applaud and praise him. She would also want to help. Chu Li said, "It'll be difficult." "But it's not impossible," Lu Yurong said. "With our abilities, we can make the impossible possible." Chu Li smiled. "You're willing to help? Isn't this quite interesting?" Lu Yurong smiled. Chu Li nodded to himself. As expected, Lu Yurong would help. Lu Yurong said, "But you can't go overboard with your fight with the public house. It's best to cover it up as much as possible. Otherwise, people will believe you even more." "What do you have in mind?" Chu Li smiled. Lu Yurong picked up the white jade teacup and took a sip. She looked at him with a smile. Chu Li smiled. "Don't worry, I won't drag the Ren public house into this." Lu Yurong smiled. "You can imagine that. We'll just send out the invitation and the public house won't send anyone over. This is enough. There's no need to do anything else." Chu Li nodded slowly. He felt that it made sense. "Then it's settled. I've discussed it with Big Brother and the others. We'll get married in 5 days, Lu Yurong said. "That's a good day. Please take care of me in the future." She closed fist saluted and looked at Chu Li with a smile. "Same to you." Chu Li closed fist saluted and smiled. "I thought it was a small matter. I didn't think it would escalate to this point." This was the power of a prince, especially a prince from the Fu dynasty. One word from him could decide the fate of others. Even someone as strong as Chu Li and as intelligent as Lu Yurong could only suffer when faced with the power of a prince from the Fu dynasty. Lu Yurong sighed and nodded lightly. At first, she thought that the emperor would try to shield Chu Li for the sake of the fact that he was a disciple of Goddess Attraction Mountain. Then, she would hide for a while and the matter would be over. Never did she expect that the emperor would make such a move. It was so disappointing. Chu Li said, "Everything will pass. You can come back any time you want in the future. You know what I'm capable of." Lu Yurong forced a smile. Chu Li smiled and said, "Goddess Attraction Mountain is a cultivation sanctuary. If you cultivate there, you'll be able to advance very quickly. It's a blessing in disguise." Lu Yurong rolled her eyes at him. "I'd rather not have this fortune." Chu Li had a huge mansion in Chongming Town. It was decorated with a festive atmosphere. It was noon and the sun shone brightly on the Chu estate. Guests were coming and going, and the entire hall and several side courtyards were filled with people. All the public houses sent people over. Most of them were junior high dukes or young masters from the public houses. As Chu Li's reputation grew, the people in the martial arts world started to show him some respect. Disciples from all 4 major sects came to attend the banquet. Xueling, Su Ru, and Li Yu brought a few scribes and maids to attend. Although it was lively, it was orderly. Chu Li personally welcomed the guests in front of the main door. He was dressed in a red robe with a pair of golden wings on his head. He was full of joy. He wanted to put on a show until the end. Fa Yuan brought a few monks with him. His gray robe did not diminish his elegant demeanor. His brows were sharp and his eyes were bright. The 4 middle-aged monks behind him all had high cultivation levels. They were all grandmasters. "Congratulations, Brother Chu." Fa Yuan smiled at Chu Li and bowed with pressed palms. "I didn't expect Brother Chu and Miss Lu to get married." When he and Lu Yurong escorted Chu Li to the imperial mausoleum, he had already noticed Lu Yurong's strange thoughts. However, he did not point it out. He also felt that it was impossible for the two of them to be together. They were both too smart. It would be difficult for them to be together. He never thought that they would really become husband and wife. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "I hope it goes smoothly. I don't think we are fated to be together." He naturally would not tell Fa Yuan the inside story. Fa Yuan understood the meaning behind his words. He raised his brows and said calmly, "Now that things have come to this, the emperor should stop, right?" Chu Li shook his head. "Our emperor is not someone who can stop. Although I am not talented, I will still stand by Brother Chu's side," Fa Yuan said. Chu Li smiled. "Thank you, monk." As the two were talking, another group of people came, carrying heavy gifts. "Chief Chu, congratulations." The leader of this group of people was an old man with bright eyes. He was a grandmaster. "Thank you, hero." Chu Li closed fist saluted and smiled. "Please come in." This old man was the top master of Small Goose Hiking Mountain. Chu Li had only met him once. The old man closed fist saluted and laughed. He did not expect Chu Li to remember him. He was happy and brought the people into the Chu residence. Chu Li continued to talk to Fa Yuan. "Fa Yuan, I have become a disciple of Goddess Attraction Mountain. I am considered a member of the Fu dynasty. The Tempest Temple can rest assured now, right?" As a disciple of Goddess Attraction Mountain, he became a member of the Fu dynasty. Even if he became the emperor and was given the title of enlightened master, he would occupy the Fu dynasty's quota. He would not occupy the Ji dynasty's quota. The Tempest Temple could also rest assured. Fa Yuan smiled. "Thank you, Brother Chu." He knew that he could not compete with Chu Li. The temple would send people to weaken Chu Li. He could not stop them and did not want to. Even if he had a profound dermic base, he would never give up on becoming an enlightened master. This concerned the Tempest Temple's fate. Chu Li shook his head. We are friends. It's best if we don't kill each other. The Emperor did not act appropriately this time. If there are any difficulties, the temple will help, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li smiled. Then please give me some good jade talismans. Fa Yuan nodded slowly. All right. The value of jade talismans did not lie in the jade material, but in the time it took to refine them. Chu Li had the ability to set up formations, but it was not easy to refine formation talismans. It seemed like he wanted to set up a big formation. Jade talismans were also precious to the Tempest Temple, but compared to Chu Li's favor, they were nothing. As they spoke, the sound of hooves could be heard. 9 purple-robed riders arrived in front of the Chu residence. Many people in the distance recognized them. They were Imperial House protectors. Chu Li stared at them with a frown. He shook his head and sighed. They're finally here. Fa Yuan looked at the 9 Imperial House protectors and sighed. Brother Chu, feel free to do as you please. Chu Li smiled. Is Chu Li here? The leading middle-aged man raised his voice. Chu Li fist saluted. I'm Chu Li. We are here on His Majesty's orders. Chu Li will leave immediately to meet His Majesty in Fairy's capital. He took out a shining golden scroll from his inner pocket. It was an imperial edict. He held it with both hands and glided down from his horse to Chu Li. He presented it to him. His upper body did not move, but his feet moved. It was as if he had glided to Chu Li. He said, Chu Li, receive the edict. Chu Li looked at him and shook his head. I'll be getting married in an hour. The 9 protectors have come all the way here. An hour won't make much of a difference. Please forgive me. How dare you? The middle-aged Imperial House protector said, Why are you still not receiving the edict? Fa Yuan pressed his palms together and bowed. Why do you have to make things difficult for Brother Chu? We'll be getting married soon. What's the big deal if we depart after that? Chapter 3584. Sigh. Chu Li let out a long sigh and shook his head with a bitter smile. Bishop, Elder Fong, I really don't have the face to see anyone anymore. I'm a burden all the time, and I didn't contribute at all. Who said you didn't contribute? Elder Fong smiled. If you didn't sacrifice yourself to save me, I might not have been able to escape Sun Mingyue's pursuit. Chu Li shook his head and smiled bitterly. Elder, you think too highly of me. It's not because of me that Sun Mingyue didn't go after you. Even if I used the sacrificial divine power, I wouldn't have been able to stop her. It's good that you understand. Song Jifan scoffed. When you go back, don't come out again. Just cultivate in the floating mountain and only come out to do things when you reach the 6th level of the ageless longevity technique. Chu Li quickly said, Bishop, I'm afraid of delaying something important. I'm quite familiar with Chongming Town. I was careless this time, but it won't happen again. Song Jifan's face darkened and stared at him. You still don't want to give up? You still want to fight Chu Li? Bishop. Chu Li sighed. Am I supposed to watch Chu Li roam free and do nothing? You can do anything after you've mastered your martial arts. Song Jifan scoffed. This was also what he said to himself. There was only one way to defeat Chu Li. Cultivate hard until his martial arts far surpassed Chu Li's. It would not be too late to take revenge. Chu Li shook his head and said, Cult leader can do this, but I can't. I know that even if I train hard for the rest of my life, I won't be able to defeat Chu Li. He's really too powerful. He's a true genius, a genius like cult leader. He's not someone a mortal like me can reach. Elder Fong chuckled. Bailey Na, you're a genius too. It's just that you were born at the wrong time and had bad luck. As long as you go back to the floating mountain and train hard, you'll have the chance to take revenge one day. Chu Li shook his head. Even if I can defeat Chu Li, I'm afraid Bishop won't let me wait until then. Chu Li would have been killed by Bishop. Haha, Song Jifan suddenly laughed. Chu Li's words had fulfilled his long-cherished wish, and he could not help but feel carefree. Elder Fong cast a sidelong glance at Chu Li and said faintly, "Bishop, in my opinion, it's better to slow down." "Slow down what?" Song Jifan stopped smiling and asked casually. Elder Fong said, "Let's slow down on dealing with Chu Li." Song Jifan frowned and looked at Elder Fong with a displeased expression. "Elder, you also think that I can't defeat Chu Li, right?" Elder Fong nodded, "Yes." Chu Li hurriedly signaled Elder Fong with his eyes, signaling her not to say such things. However, Elder Fong ignored it and said calmly, "Bishop, you should know, you just don't want to admit it. Chu Li's cultivation level is higher now. Bishop won't be able to get away with it." "That might not be the case." Song Jifan snorted, "This guy is too cunning. Every time I want to use my trump card, he dodges it." Elder Fong shook her head. "The bishop has an advantage over Chu Li. It's just that the bishop has never used it." "What advantage?" Song Jifan asked. Elder Fong said, "Bishop's advancement is faster than Chu Li's. The ageless longevity technique is more exquisite." That's true." Song Jifan nodded proudly. The ageless longevity technique was the most powerful technique in the world. It was definitely better than the dragon taming technique that Chu Li cultivated. The dragon taming technique was not considered a top antique study. It was not even worthy of carrying the shoes of the ageless longevity technique 1,000 years ago. Elder Fong said, "If that's the case, why are you in a hurry to find Chu Li? As long as you calm down and cultivate for a year, you'll be able to defeat him easily. There's no need to waste too much effort." "A year." Song Jifan frowned and thought about it. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. "I really can't wait for a year. Bishop." Elder Fong was a little impatient. Song Jifan waved his hand and said, "Let me think about it." "Yes." Elder Fong nodded helplessly. Song Jifan closed his eyes again and began to channel. A few wrinkles slowly disappeared from his withered face. Elder Fong stood up and left. Chu Li took a deep breath and followed Elder Fong to a wooden house in the distance. "Elder, I have something to say," Chu Li hurriedly said. Elder Fong gave him a sidelong glance. Her long and narrow eyes squinted slightly. Chu Li said, "Elder, it's best that you don't persuade the bishop to let go." Elder Fong smiled faintly. "Why?" Chu Li sighed. "This isn't just a problem with the heaven regaining sword. It's also a fight for a man's dignity. I feel that if the bishop can't win against Chu Li, he'll always be dissatisfied. He won't be able to calm down when he cultivates. It'll be detrimental to his advancement. Based on what you're saying, the bishop will always fight against Chu Li and suffer losses." Elder Fong scoffed. Chu Li said, "Keep fighting despite repeated defeat. The more you suffer, the braver you become. This is beneficial to the bishop. Moreover, the bishop is very competitive and full of youthful vigor. How is it possible for him to hide like a turtle and not come out? Elder, why waste your energy and make the bishop unhappy? As long as I think it's right, I'll definitely say it." Elder Fong said, "I won't just flatter him." Chu Li sighed. "Since the bishop is the bishop, we, as his subordinates, only need to listen to his orders. As for what to do, the bishop will decide." "You're a good subordinate." Elder Fong scoffed softly. "You have a bright future. Which bishop wouldn't like such a subordinate? Moreover, he had already shown enough loyalty. The bishop would obviously trust him. Bailey Na was also a smart guy. It was estimated that he would soon climb to the middle level of the church. Then, he would move up step by step. In the end, his position might not be lower than hers. Thinking about this, she sighed. "Fine, I'll listen to you. I won't persuade the bishop to let go." She just felt unhappy if she didn't say it. In fact, she understood the bishop's difficulties. It was not just because he was competitive. The reason was unknown to Bailey Na. Chu Li smiled. Elder is wise. Don't give me that. Go and cultivate your martial arts. Elder Fong waved her hand. Chu Li fist saluted and left. It was no wonder that Elder Fong's temperament did not change. She was still young. It was because she was a simple person. She was strict and inflexible. When she should not be merciful, she would not be merciful. Moreover, her martial arts was excellent. That was why she was feared in the floating mountain. In the evening 3 days later, Chu Li's injuries recovered quickly. He could only cultivate the first level of the ageless longevity technique, but it was exquisite. Moreover, Song Jifan had removed Sun Mingyue's inner energy. Hence, he recovered quickly. As the three of them were eating together, Song Jifan suddenly said, Elder Fong, I've decided to enter the 100,000 hills again. Chu Li cried out, Bishop, you can't. Song Jifan's face returned to his youthful handsomeness. The original haggard look disappeared. Elder Fong's expression changed too. After a while, she was not in a hurry to object. She muttered, Bishop, are you confident? I've thought of an idea, Song Jifan said calmly. I made a mistake the last time. I shouldn't have entered as an enlightened master. I should have entered as a grandmaster. The supreme spirit beasts would not have such a strong reaction. What about this time? Elder Fong frowned. What are you going to do, Bishop? I'll destroy half of my cultivation level and enter as an innate master. Song Jifan smiled. Once I get the spirit beast, I'll destroy my cultivation level after devouring it. I'll keep myself as an innate master. I'll just strengthen my body and ignore my inner energy cultivation level. Good idea. Elder Fong nodded slowly. But it's dangerous. Chapter 3586. Everyone stared at him with their eyes wide open. Under the sunlight, he gently shook his long sword in the air and returned it to its scabbard. He stood in the void as if he was walking on flat ground and looked down at the crowd. His body was covered in a bright light, like a god descending to earth, imprinted in everyone's mind. Although Chu Li was not an enlightened master, he had learned the skills of an enlightened master. He had a thorough understanding of the void and reached the state of being an integral part of heaven and man. Therefore, he could stand in the void without moving like an enlightened master. Huang Jin's head and body were like two feathers that slowly fell to the ground as if they were weightless. The crowd looked on in surprise. Although it was cruel and scary, the more they did not want to look, the more they stared. The body and head slowly became brighter as if a layer of water fell on his body. Gradually, the body and head became brighter and brighter until they became two balls of light that could not be looked at directly. It was so dazzling. However, the situation was too strange. The people knew that it was not appropriate and should close their eyes, but they stared at it with their eyes wide open, watching as it turned into two white lights and shot into the sky. The late autumn sky was especially blue as if it had been washed. A few white clouds floated leisurely. At this moment, a door of light slowly opened. It was a huge and majestic door of light. Even from far above the clouds, the crowd felt as if it was a prison. Their knees went weak and they wanted to kneel on the ground. Chu Li scoffed. It really is a celestial being. His shout resounded throughout the city. When the people who were about to kneel heard this shout, like a big bell being rung, their bodies suddenly trembled. They were freed from the majestic prison and stood up straight again. They could not help but tremble as they watched the door of light slowly open. Then, the two lights merged into one and entered the door of light. Then, the door of light slowly closed and gradually disappeared into the clouds. Chu Li stood in the void and looked down at the crowd. He raised his voice and said, "The other 9 celestial beings, are you not going to come out and greet me?" The crowd turned around and looked around, feeling excited. They did not expect Chu Li to get rid of one person so easily, and it was a celestial being at that. Celestials only appeared in legends. In their impression, celestials were powerful and invincible. They lived for tens of thousands of years and were the most enviable existences. No matter how rich their imagination was, no matter how much confidence they had in Chu, when they saw these people treating the protectors of the High Duke's public house like adults beating up children, they did not dare to have too much hope. Moreover, Chu had not appeared for a long time, so they subconsciously thought that Chu was hiding and thinking of ways to deal with them. They never thought that they would see such a scene. They were trembling with excitement. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to witness the death of a celestial being. It was enough for them to brag to their sons and grandsons for the rest of their lives. Chongming Town had a rule that even a celestial being could not break. As the people of Chongming Town, they were all proud of it. As a celestial being, you still want to hide? Chu laughed loudly. Could it be that you're afraid of me? Chu, you really live up to your reputation. A cold laugh rang out, and then 9 people appeared in the sky, surrounding Chu. These 9 people were different in shape and appearance. The only thing they had in common was that their bodies were slowly emitting brilliance, and the brilliance was getting brighter and brighter, overpowering the noon sun. People were shocked. There were 9 celestial beings, not just one. Looking at this posture, it was obvious that the 9 of them were going to join forces. Hey, if you have the guts, come at me one by one. 9 against 1, what kind of man are you? What kind of celestial being are you? It's so embarrassing. Someone shouted. The 9 people ignored him and just surrounded Chu, slowly approaching him. Chu glanced at the 9 people and shook his head. Look at you, you don't have the appearance of a celestial being. Such courage, it's really embarrassing for a celestial being. I'm embarrassed for you. Don't try to be eloquent. Chu, you dare to kill a celestial being, how dare you? An old man said slowly. His eyebrows were pale and his face was full of wrinkles. He did not look like a celestial being at all. However, at this time, as the brilliance around his body brightened, the wrinkles on his face gradually faded and finally disappeared. From an old face, he became a middle-aged man. This slight change was presented in front of everyone's eyes, and they were amazed. Chu smiled. Why can't celestials be killed? Mortals can't kill celestials, only heavenly rules can, the old man said in a low voice. He had become a middle-aged man, and his face was square and stern. He said with a stern expression, now that you've killed a celestial being, you've already broken heavenly rules. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Chu laughed. So, when faced with celestials like you, I can only obediently accept my death? That's the biggest joke in the world. That's right, he said slowly. If that's the case, we'll send you to heaven. When you reach the outland, you'll know the consequences. As soon as he finished speaking, the other 8 people, who were shining brightly, attacked together. Bam, 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 bam. Chu was hit by the 9 people like a sandbag. It was as if he had become stupid and did not know how to dodge. He took all 9 hits head-on. Huh! The 9 people's expressions changed slightly. Chu's expression did not change. His white robe fluttered and he smiled at the 9 people. He shook his head. Is that all you've got? After cultivating the black tortoise power, his indestructible body of titanium became stronger. The 9 people's palm energy could not break through the indestructible body of titanium. It was like scratching an itch. You? The middle-aged man frowned at him. Chu shook his head. Is that all you celestials are capable of? You've disappointed me. Good. Good. The middle-aged man said slowly. You really have some tricks up your sleeves. Again. The other 8 people looked solemn. They would not be able to take a hit head-on without getting injured. It was obvious that Chu's cultivation level was higher than theirs. They had to use their ultimate study. If the 9 of them could not kill Chu, they would become the laughing stock of the world. Instead of becoming famous, they would become a laughingstock. Who would be willing to become their disciple? How could they strengthen their faction? Swoosh! Chu suddenly appeared behind the middle-aged man, and the sword at his waist flashed. He used the tiger taming technique and the spirit tiger's spiritual energy to activate the heaven-slaughtering three forms. Coupled with his tyrannical strength, the speed of his sword was beyond imagination. Even if the middle-aged man was prepared, he could not avoid it in time. The head was separated from the body, and blood spurted out like a pillar. It was beautiful and scary under the noon sun. The people screamed in shock, but they were even more excited. The head and body shone again, and then a light door appeared in the sky. It slowly opened, and the people felt like they were in a prison again. But this time, they resisted the urge to kneel. They stared at the two rays of light that merged into one and went into the light door. The light door slowly closed, and the world returned to peace. The people's eyes fell on the remaining 8 celestial beings. The 8 celestial beings' faces were pale, and they stared at Chu. Their gazes were like burning torches, and their killing intent was like boiling water. They wanted to tear Chu apart. The dignity of the celestial beings was shattered by him. From now on, the world would never respect the celestial beings like this. Chu looked at the 8 people calmly and said, "Which one of you has killed a protector of the High Duke's public house?" "We have." The 8 people sneered. Chu nodded. Then, everyone returned to heaven. After he said that, he disappeared and appeared next to another celestial being. The 8 of them immediately attacked him. The power of the celestial beings was beyond imagination. They seemed to be far away from him, but in the next moment, they were close. Chapter 3587. Chu smiled. "You still need my help, tell me about it." He was not in a hurry to agree. He had a deep friendship with Fa Yuan and they helped each other. However, he was wary of Liao Ming and could not make any promises. Liao Ming said calmly, "I'm preparing to ascend to heaven in advance." Chu was shocked. "It's not time yet, right? Under normal circumstances, I would have to wait for another 2 years. Liao Ming nodded calmly. "But times are pressing. If I don't leave now, I'm afraid," he shook his head lightly. Chu immediately understood what he meant. Fa Yuan's martial arts skills improved rapidly, but it could not stop the rise of geniuses. After the Deva descended, there would definitely be more geniuses cultivated and unearthed. Originally, Fa Yuan needed to wait 2 years before taking over the position. Now, it seemed that there might be someone more powerful in 2 years. Just like himself, he went from a scribe without any martial arts to a top-notch master in less than 2 years. There might be a second Chu. To be safe, it was better to let Fa Yuan take over as soon as possible. "What do you want me to do, master?" Chu asked. Liao Ming said, "Now that the world is in chaos, I won't have peace even if I want to ascend to heaven. There will be people coming to cause trouble, even Deva will come to disturb me." Chu nodded and looked at him. He guessed what Liao Ming wanted him to do but pretended not to know. He wanted Liao Ming to say it himself. Liao Ming sighed. "Almsgiver Chu, come and protect Fa Yuan, what do you think?" Chu smiled. "Of course, it's my duty." Liao Ming sighed in relief. He smiled and pressed his palms together. "Thank you, Almsgiver Chu." Chu pressed his palms together. "You're welcome, master. I'm not helping because of you, I'm helping Fa Yuan." "Of course." Liao Ming nodded. "But I have to remind you, Almsgiver Chu, don't kill Deva if you can." Chu frowned. "There's something I don't understand. Can Deva kill mortals at will?" "No." Liao Ming shook his head. Monk Liao Ming shook his head. "Everything has its cause and effect. The power of karma is so strong that even a celestial cannot go against it. Killing mortals is a grave sin. Killing one more person means one more sin. When we return to the realm beyond heavens, we will be punished even more severely." "What punishment?" Chu Li scoffed. The lightest punishment would be losing one's lifespan and cultivation. The most severe punishment would be direct reincarnation and banishment from the realm beyond heavens. Monk Liao Ming sighed. This is already the heaviest punishment. You won't let them disappear into thin air. Chu Li scoffed. Monk Liao Ming shook his head slowly. No. Chu Li's face darkened as he slowly nodded. This was clearly not treating mortals as humans and could not be exchanged for their lives. Monk Liao Ming said, "A celestial killing a mortal is a grave sin, but a mortal killing a celestial, the sin is even heavier. Almsgiver Chu, I don't have to say any more, you should know the consequences." "What are the consequences of me killing 5 celestials?" Chu Li scoffed. Monk Liao Ming sighed and said, "When you reach the realm beyond heaven, even if you don't reincarnate, I'm afraid your cultivation will be crippled and you will become an ordinary celestial being. At that time, how can the celestial beings you killed not come to seek revenge? You can imagine how difficult it is to live. What will happen to the Deva I've killed after they return to the Grandmaster's boundary?" Chu Li asked. "They will lose their cultivation," Monk Liao Ming said, "and become an ordinary celestial being." Chu Li nodded slowly. "If that's the case, then kill them." "Almsgiver Chu, be careful," Monk Liao Ming said in a low voice. Chu Li scoffed. "Who can tell what will happen in the future? Kill them first." Sigh. Monk Liao Ming looked at him helplessly and said slowly, "Heaven's power is like a prison, no one can resist it. Almsgiver Chu, think carefully, that's all I have to say." Chu Li said, "Thank you for the reminder, when will it be?" "In 3 days, Monk Liao Ming said. Chu Li said, "All right, 2 days later, I will go to the Tempest Temple." "Thank you, Almsgiver Chu." Monk Liao Ming pressed his palms together and slowly disappeared. Chu Li pondered for a moment, then suddenly disappeared in a flash. A tall middle-aged man dressed in a purple robe stood at the peak of the mountain. The cold mountain wind blew at his purple robe as he looked down at the vast land. His expression was somewhat dazed. Initially, when he received the mission to return to this world, he was somewhat happy. After all, he was born and grew up here, and he had left for 200 years. Now that he was back, he felt that things were still the same, but the people had changed, and there was also a sense of familiarity. However, at this time, the martial arts world had been turned upside down. Chu Li had risen to power, and Du Feng in the south and Chu Li in the north. Du Feng had disappeared without a trace, and it was said that he was in isolated cultivation after receiving an attack from an enlightened master, and had not appeared since. Some people thought that he was dead, some thought that he was cultivating a divine technique. Chu Li, on the other hand, was like a comet streaking across the sky, shining brightly. He killed an enlightened master with his status as a grandmaster, and suppressed the enlightened master to the point where no one could stop him. It was a huge joke. He returned to this world to strengthen the sect, to recruit more disciples, and to train them into grandmasters, so that they could ascend to the Outland, and strengthen the sect's strength in the Outland. If he wanted to strengthen the sect and recruit more qualified disciples, he would not know how long it would take if he had to search for them alone. It was far better to let those qualified disciples come to him on their own. If he wanted to do that, he would have to be famous and become the top master. And if he wanted to be famous, the fastest way was to defeat Chu Li and amaze the world. Unfortunately, Chu Li was too strange. He did not know what sword technique he used, but he could actually kill a celestial. If he really returned to the Outland with a face full of dirt, he would definitely become a laughing stock and be demoted to the lowest level disciple of the sect. He did not know how many years it would take to climb back up. Thinking of this, his fighting spirit rose again. He could not admit defeat like this. Even if he died, he had to take Chu Li with him. If he could kill Chu Li, he would have an explanation when he returned to the Outland, and he could be absolved of most of his crimes. Just as he thought of this, Chu Li slowly appeared behind him, and then he slashed down with his sword. The purple-robed middle-aged man's body suddenly shone brightly, like a scorching sun falling down. He had already used the secret skill of destroying everything indiscriminately, and all his power burst out. After this attack, he would die without a doubt, but he could also kill Chu Li. Chu Li suddenly retreated and waved his long sword. Ding 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 ding, invisible power hit the long sword, and it was shattered by the sword light. The remaining power hit Chu Li's white robe, and the white robe shook violently, and he retreated 100 meters in the void. Another light door appeared in the sky, and then a white light shot towards the light door. The figure of the purple-robed middle-aged man appeared in front of the light door, looked down at Chu Li with some unwillingness, and then went into the light door and disappeared. Chu Li frowned. The Celestial's last attack was really powerful, but fortunately he had the diamond indestructible body, or else he would have died. He disappeared again, and the next moment he appeared next to another Celestial, waved his sword, and killed him without any hindrance. He did not let any of the remaining Celestials go, and with the palm force that they left in his body, Chu Li found them one by one, and then killed them one by one. He did not see any Celestials coming to kill him. Chu Li's heart was a little heavy, and he knew that once he stepped into the Outland, the road would be extremely difficult, because he had offended too many people, not only Celestials, but also enlightened masters. Now that things had come to this, he could only desperately cultivate and reach the peak. Even if he went to the Outland, he would reach the level of Song Wuji, and he would not have to suffer anymore. Chapter 3588. Chu Li returned to his courtyard in the High Duke's public house and sat under the Glories Will tree. The rich spiritual energy of the Glories Will tree nourished his body. He felt refreshed and his mind was exceptionally clear. He did not feel uncomfortable killing heavenly beings at all. After they died, they immediately turned into a ray of light and ascended to the Outland. He did not feel like they were being killed at all. This made Chu Li hate it. Heavenly beings seemed to be of a higher status than the mortals here. Even if they died, they would not really die. Under the moonlight, his expression was solemn. Suddenly, a white figure flashed by and Shao Qi appeared in front of him. Chu Li looked at her in shock. Shao Qi was dressed in a snow-white robe. Her face was as white as jade, and her cold eyes were smiling. "How's my void diversion?" Chu Li was surprised. "You know it too?" "Yes." Shao Qi nodded. "It's actually just a thin layer of paper that can be broken with a gentle poke. I just haven't been able to properly understand it. Because of you, I've been lazy." She had never thought of learning it because whenever she thought of Chu Li, she could call him over and he would immediately send her to wherever she wanted to go. Just like in Chu Li's past life, he did not need to drive as long as he had a chauffeur. Chu Li nodded. "Is it the regal sword scripture?" "Yes." Shao Qi smiled. "The regal sword can break the void, but I've never understood it. Master just gave me a gentle poke and I immediately understood it, so I could come over." Chu Li smiled and nodded. "Do you have something to tell me?" Shao Qi sighed. "I'm here to persuade you." Chu Li raised an eyebrow. Shao Qi said, "Don't kill heavenly beings anymore." Chu Li frowned. "Master Hui Qing said that?" "Master meant well," Shao Qi said. "Heavenly beings have a different identity. They're different from the masters of our world. Killing heavenly beings will cause endless trouble, especially when they enter the Outland in the future." Chu Li laughed. "Who said I'm going to enter the Outland in the future?" "Don't enter the Outland." Shao Qi was surprised. "After becoming an enlightened master, you have to enter the Outland even if you don't want to." Chu Li shook his head. "Even if you enter the Outland, you don't have to stay there. Goddess Attraction Mountain's disciples are the same. Master can enter the Outland at will." He was a disciple of Goddess Attraction Mountain, so he naturally had this kind of authority. His plan was to spend less time in Beyond Avalon. As long as he stayed in this world, no one could do anything to him. Shao-Chi said, "Your master will ascend to the Grandmaster's boundary sooner or later. For the sake of the future, it's better to kill fewer celestial beings." Chu-Li looked at her helplessly and nodded lightly. Shao-Chi smiled sweetly and held his big hand with her jade-like hand. She sighed and said, "Let the Celestials do whatever they want. As long as they don't do anything reckless, I'm sure they won't dare to provoke you again after this." Chu-Li said, "All right, as long as they don't provoke me, I won't bother with them. However, if they provoke me, then don't blame me for being rude." "All right." Shao-Chi was very satisfied with the result. The two of them held hands and were about to hug each other when a silhouette appeared. Lu Yurong appeared behind them in a white dress. Her face was covered with a white veil, revealing only a pair of bright eyes. She looked at them with a smile. Shao-Chi looked at her with a frown and scoff. "Lady Lu, you're in such a good mood to come here. I'm also Chu-Li's wife." Lu Yurong chuckled. "Of course I can come, right? Lady Lu seems to want to make it real," Shao-Chi said lightly. Lu Yurong nodded, her beautiful eyes full of smiles. "That's not impossible. What do you think, Lady Shao?" "You'll have to ask Chu-Li," Shao-Chi scoffed. Chu-Li hurriedly waved his hand. "Lady Lu, you don't come without a reason. If you have something to say, just say it." "Isn't this a little inconvenient?" Lu Yurong glanced at Shao-Chi. Chu-Li said impatiently, "Do you want me to leave too? That would be more convenient?" Lu Yurong chuckled. "Both of you can't joke around. All right, I'm here to give you some advice. Don't kill celestial beings anymore." Chu-Li frowned. "Is that the words of the mysterious lady of the Nine Heavens sect leader?" Lu Yurong nodded. "Yes, the leader means well. If you kill celestial beings, there will be endless trouble, especially when you reach the Grandmaster's boundary." Chu-Li said, "I really have no choice. All right, I'll be careful." Lu Yurong chuckled. "Lady Shao, you've also become a disciple of celestial beings, right?" "That's right." Shao-Chi nodded. Lu Yurong said, "Then let's see who can reach the Grandmaster's boundary first." "All right," Shao-Chi said. Lu Yurong waved her hand and smiled sweetly. Then, she suddenly disappeared. Shao-Chi retracted her gaze and glanced at Chu-Li. Chu-Li sighed. "Celestial beings and celestial beings are on the same side after all. It'll be troublesome in the future." "It's fine," Shao-Chi said. "Just do what you want." Chu-Li smiled and hugged her tightly. The Tempest Temple still stood majestically under the setting sun. Under the setting sun, the Tempest Temple was majestic and solemn. The faint sound of chanting could be heard, and the faint fragrance of sandalwood filled the air, adding a sense of serenity and calmness. As soon as Chu-Li appeared outside the Tempest Temple, the temple door opened before he could even knock on the door. Fa Yuan, dressed in a gray frock, slowly walked down the stairs. He smiled and pressed his palms together. "Brother Chu." Chu-Li smiled as he looked at Fa Yuan. Fa Yuan's gray frock fluttered in the wind. He looked like a handsome man that was rarely seen. His bald head shone under the setting sun. He had a calm demeanor, much calmer and calmer than before. He had the demeanor of an eminent monk. Chu-Li praised, "I didn't expect your cultivation level to improve so much." Fa Yuan's current cultivation level was profound. It was obvious that he had cultivated some kind of divine technique, which greatly improved his cultivation level. He even received enlightenment. "If they can kill me, their disciples might have a chance." Chu-Li was stunned and his expression changed slightly. He suddenly thought of the elusive Ninth Heaven sect and Hui Qing. Chapter 3589. Chu-Li asked thoughtfully, "What are these celestial beings doing down here?" Fa Yuan looked up at the sky and whispered, "From what I know, it's to train disciples." As long as they become grandmasters, they'll be able to step into the Outland and become a powerful ally. What powerful ally does the Outland need? Chu Li frowned. I know there's been a huge change in the Outland, but I don't know what it is. I don't know either. Fa Yuan shook his head, but I do know that the Outland is in desperate need of manpower. That's why the celestial beings are desperately searching for manpower to train grandmasters as soon as possible. Chu Li said, becoming a grandmaster can't be done quickly. It requires comprehension and the surpassing state. He was lucky to be able to break through and become a grandmaster, but the others needed to be in the surpassing state, and the surpassing state was extremely limited in the world. Every single one of them was a unique resource of the famous sects, and they would never lend it to others. It was extremely secretive, and only the core disciples knew about it. Some sects only had 1 or 2 people who knew about it. Fa Yuan sighed, that's why the world will be in chaos. Chu Li said, as an enlightened master, you have to deal with a lot of things. That's right. Fa Yuan looked solemn and sighed, I have a long way to go. I'll need Brother Chu's help when the time comes. Chu Li waved his hand and smiled. I'm far away and can't help here. I can't count on you, Fa Yuan. The peace of the Ji dynasty needs me and His Majesty's protection, Fa Yuan said seriously. Brother Chu, you're also a citizen of the Ji dynasty. You shouldn't just stand by and watch. Chu Li sighed. I'll help if I can. You just said that you won't let me kill more celestial beings. Fa Yuan smiled. Brother Chu can't, but I can. Brother Chu, you just need to help, you don't have to kill them yourself. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Becoming an enlightened master means you can kill celestial beings? Fa Yuan said slowly. An enlightened master killing a celestial being is not a sin. On the contrary, a celestial being killing an enlightened master is a sin. Chu Li frowned and thought about the relationship. It seemed that enlightened masters had a higher status than celestial beings, but their martial arts were usually not as good as celestial beings. Otherwise, the Outland would not have increased the enlightened master's martial arts by several times just to deal with celestial beings. Chu Li said, this time, the celestial beings will come to cause trouble. What measures does your temple have to deal with them? Sigh. Fa Yuan sighed and shook his head. What a sin. If the celestial being really wanted to make a move, no matter how many people there were, it would be useless. Yet, all the senior brothers and seniors insisted on making a move. Chu Li frowned and said, in my opinion, we should ask them to withdraw so that they won't be distracted. I will convey Brother Chu's opinion. Fa Yuan nodded lightly. Chu Li said, but it's strange too. The news of Master Liao Ming's ascension should be kept a secret. Fa Yuan pointed at the sky. Chu Li came to a sudden realization. He scoffed and said nothing more. It was obvious that the news was passed down from the realm beyond heaven. To be able to pass down such secret information, there was simply no way to keep it a secret. The tallest pagoda in the Great Lane Temple was like a sword piercing the sky. Moonlight sprinkled down from the sky, and the moonlight was like water. The 3 people on the top floor of the pagoda seemed to be draped in a light veil. The 3 of them were sitting cross-legged in the middle, forming a triangle. Master Liao Ming wore a purple gold robe. His snow-white beard was neatly combed without a single strand of hair out of place. His eyes were slightly closed, and he looked solemn. He bathed in the moonlight without moving, as if he did not know the passage of time. Fa Yuan also wore a purple gold robe. From now on, he was the strongest person in the Tempest Temple, and also the pillar of the Tempest Temple. To Fa Yuan, this was too much of a burden. Master Liao Ming ascended to the enlightened master's position at the age of 93. At that time, he was already very experienced. He had enough wisdom and experience to handle any situation. On the other hand, Fa Yuan was only 26 years old. Although he had been training in the mortal world, he lacked 10 years of experience. Chu sat beside the two of them. He was as calm as still water, with the taming tiger divine's sword on his knees. Tonight, he might have to go on a killing spree. The surroundings of the pagoda were filled with gray-robed monks. Each of them stood upright like a pine tree, with their palms pressed together motionlessly. It was as if they were statues of Buddha standing beside the pagoda, creating a solemn atmosphere. Kaboom! A sudden clap of thunder sounded in the sky. The sky was clear and cloudless, and the bright moon was not obscured. This clap of thunder was a little strange. It shook the entire sky, and the Tempest Temple seemed to be shaking. Chu looked up at the sky. Master Liao Ming also looked up at the sky. After a moment of concentration, he pressed his palms together and sighed. It's time, Fa Yuan. The Tempest Temple will be in your hands from now on. Don't worry, Honorable Master. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Master Liao Ming pressed his palms together at Chu Li. Thank you, almsgiver Chu. Chu Li pressed his palms together. Master, you don't have to be so courteous. If that's the case, then I'm going to ascend to heaven. Master Liao Ming stood up and slowly floated into the void. He looked at the monks on the ground, pressed his palms together, and chanted the name of Buddha. Amitabha! Amitabha! The monks chanted the name of Buddha in unison. It was grand and solemn, and it made people feel deep veneration. Chu looked up at Master Liao Ming. His body began to emit light, and soon, it was as bright as a moon. The light was gentle at first, but it gradually intensified. Suddenly, a pillar of light descended from the sky. It was as bright as the sun, shining directly on Master Liao Ming's body. At the same time, it shone on Fa Yuan, who was sitting on the pagoda. Fa Yuan's purple gold kasaya fluttered and gradually floated up. It was lifted up by an invisible force and reached the same height as Master Liao Ming. The two of them stood side by side, bathed in the scorching light. They could be seen from a few miles away in the night sky. As Chu Li stood below, he could also feel the spiritual energy from the outland that was almost tangible. Moreover, this spiritual energy was extremely strange. It was different from ordinary spiritual energy, and he could feel his cultivation level rising rapidly just by standing below it. He looked down at the monks under the pagoda and saw them retreating as if avoiding snakes and scorpions. They gave way to the area where the light shone. Chu Li came to a sudden realization. Not everyone could absorb the spiritual energy of the outland. Fa Yuan was able to absorb it because he was the enlightened master chosen by the outland. Chu Li himself was able to absorb it because of the Supreme Titanium Supreme Scripture and the indestructible body of titanium. Stop! Suddenly, a shout was heard. Then, 9 figures passed by the monk. Their bodies shone brightly and shot above the pagoda. They were about to rush towards Fa Yuan and Master Liao Ming. Chu Li scoffed. As Monk Liao Ming expected, there were really celestials disturbing them. He appeared in front of Fa Yuan in a flash. He slowly pulled out his long sword and fully displayed the power of the heaven-killing 3 forms. The power of the sword shrouded in all directions. The 9 celestials felt the murderous aura. It was as if a sword was stabbing at them. Everyone felt the same. Their bodies could not help but stagnate as they floated down. Chu Li stood in the void and looked down at the 9 of them. He sneered. If you want to die, then do it. Who are you? A glowing figure shouted. His voice was like a bronze bell that resounded in the night sky. It could be heard from a few miles away. Chu Li said coldly, Chu Li. The 9 celestials' expressions changed slightly. Chu Li said, if you dare to cause trouble, don't blame me for being ruthless. I don't care about the few of you. Chu Li, do you know the consequences of killing a celestial? One of them shouted. Chu Li said lightly, I've killed them. Who cares about the consequences? Scram now. Good. Good. That person shouted. Let's see how long you can be arrogant. Chapter 3590. Chu Li watched as they dragged their long shadows and disappeared into the sky. He was a little stunned. He never thought that he could scare off the 9 celestial beings so easily. The 9 celestial beings were very powerful. Fa Yuan and Monk Liao Ming would not have been able to handle them. However, he could not believe that they were scared off by his words. He turned his head and looked around. He was still a little hesitant. Could it be that they were plotting something? He then shook his head. Under the observation of the omniscient mirror, even the celestial beings would be able to sense it. Indeed, there was no one else. If the 9 celestial beings were scared off by him, it seemed that he had made a name for himself as the celestial being killer. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud thunder in the sky. A huge pillar of light fell again and enveloped Monk Liao Ming alone. Fa Yuan was bounced off and floated to Chu Li's side. Monk Liao Ming looked down at the monks and bowed with pressed palms. Then, he followed the pillar of light and rose into the sky. The huge light door slowly appeared. It was as if it had always been there, but it just hid itself. Now, it returned to its original appearance. The light door was unusually bright. It lit up half the sky and covered the light of the moon. Half the people in the world would be able to see this huge and majestic light door. Monk Liao Ming entered the light door. Before he entered the door, he turned around and bowed with pressed palms again. The monks around the pagoda all bowed and chanted loudly, sending Monk Liao Ming to heaven. Through the light door, people could vaguely see the buildings behind the door. There were pavilions and terraces with white lotuses floating in the air. It was a breathtaking scene. The huge light door slowly closed. The sky gradually returned to dusk. Only the bright moon shone brightly. Its clear light shone in the sky. It was quiet and peaceful. Chu Li turned to Fa Yuan. Fa Yuan's purple gold robe fluttered. He still had not completely digested the enlightened master's power. When he felt Chu Li's gaze, he opened his eyes. Suddenly, lightning pierced through the sky, almost blinding people. Chu Li smiled. Fa Yuan, congratulations. It went so smoothly. Fa Yuan bowed with pressed palms and sighed. I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. He also understood that if Chu Li had not been there to scare off the 9 celestial beings, it would have been very difficult for him to get through this tonight. Under the siege of the 9 great celestial beings, Honorable Master Liao Ming was completely powerless to resist, and he would have died without a doubt. Although the Grandmasters had bestowed him the power to become an enlightened master, it was impossible for them to help him fight off his enemies. If these celestial beings killed him, there might already be Grandmasters waiting on the other side, and they would immediately become enlightened masters. It did not matter if he died, as he had already transcended the limits of life and death. However, if the Tempest Temple were to decline, he would become a sinner. From now on, you're an enlightened master. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. How enviable! Fa Yuan smiled. There's no need for Brother Chu to lie to me. An enlightened master like me is beneath you. Chu Li shook his head and did not say anything. My path is long and boundless. I don't know if I'll be able to walk to the end. It's better if I don't say anything. Let's talk about those devas first. They're lawless. Since you're an enlightened master and can kill them, you should take care of them. Fa Yuan furrowed his brows and said, Celestial beings are not to be trifled with. If we can avoid provoking them, we should. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the disciples of the temple will. Chu Li scoffed. Fa Yuan, this doesn't sound like something an enlightened master would say. Fa Yuan smiled. What should an enlightened master say? You should be fearless and be the only one in the world. Chu Li said. These celestial beings need to be taught a lesson. Look at how they were just now, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. As long as you're tough, they won't dare to act recklessly. All right, I'll try my best. Fa Yuan nodded. When the time comes, I'll need Brother Chu's help. Of course. Chu Li nodded and smiled. With these fellows causing trouble, the Ji dynasty will be in chaos. Many innocent people will die, so it's better to kill them all. Fa Yuan chuckled and shook his head. Brother Chu, don't be so bloodthirsty. It's not good for your body. After this incident, he did not have a good impression of the celestial beings. He could not wait to get rid of them. However, as a monk, he was compassionate. He could not just shout and kill so openly. Chu Li said, Fa Yuan, you're an enlightened master now. You don't have to be as reserved as before. It's better to be more carefree. That's true. Fa Yuan chuckled. Brother Chu, come with me. Chu Li looked at him. Fa Yuan came to the side of the pagoda and bowed to the monks below. Honorable masters, senior uncles, senior brothers, junior brothers, please return to your positions. Ahmed Ba. The monks bowed solemnly with smiles on their faces. An enlightened master returning to the Tempest Temple was more important than anything else. Although Master Liao Ming had ascended to heaven, the Tempest Temple had one less enlightened master. Now that Fa Yuan had taken over the enlightened master's position, the Tempest Temple was still number 1 in the Ji dynasty. Chu Li followed Fa Yuan down the pagoda and arrived at an unfamiliar Zen courtyard. The atmosphere in the Zen courtyard was different from Fa Yuan's. It was antique. The trees in the courtyard were all ancient trees. They were strong and thick, and the spiritual energy was rich. The green brick floor had been polished. Everywhere revealed the vicissitudes of time. It made one's heart calm. This is... Chu Li looked at the Zen courtyard and smiled. This is a good place. The spiritual energy from hundreds of miles is gathered here. The person who built this courtyard must be a top-notch formation master. Yes, this was built by the ancestral masters. It is the residence of every enlightened master. Fa Yuan nodded. He looked at the antique courtyard with a complicated expression. This was the place of his dreams. Now, he had finally achieved his goal. He had become an enlightened master, and did not disappoint the ancestral masters. Chu Li smiled. This place does not bury the identity of an enlightened master. Why did you bring me here? Fa Yuan smiled and walked into the main house. He quickly came out and handed Chu Li an antique jade box. The jade box seemed to be made of poor quality broken jade. It could have been that it had been here for too long. Time had corroded the fine jade into this state. Chu Li smiled and took it. When he opened the jade box, he saw an antique silk book lying in the box. There were 3 big words on the cover: Sparrow Taming Technique. Chu Li's eyes widened. He turned to look at Fa Yuan. Fa Yuan smiled. This is a secret manual in the temple's collection. However, because it is not compatible with our Dharma, no one has cultivated it. It is hidden in the rare scripture pavilion, and no one has asked about it. Chu Li laughed. You don't have to say more. Those old monks must know about this heart technique, but they did not want to give it to me. Fa Yuan smiled awkwardly but did not deny it. Chu Li shook his head. Fa Yuan, none of the old monks in your temple are good. They are really cunning. If I don't help you this time, will I never get this sparrow taming technique? Of course not. Fa Yuan smiled embarrassedly. Brother Chu, the fate between you and this heart technique was not right. After he became an enlightened master, he had absolute control over the Tempest Temple. If he knew about this secret manual, he would not be stingy and give it to Chu Li. However, he did not know about it before. It was the elders who deliberately hid it from him. Chu Li shook his head and smiled as he flipped through the book. This was the real vermilion power technique. He tried to comprehend it as he flipped through it. When he finished flipping through it, he could already determine that this secret manual was the real vermilion power technique. Since then, he had gathered all 4 spirit beast heart technique. Although 2 of them were incomplete, he could see the light. He was only a small step away from truly cultivating them and becoming an enlightened master. Chapter 3591. Chu Li carefully kept the vermilion bird power technique and smiled. I'm very satisfied with this gift. Thank you, Fa Yuan. Fa Yuan shook his head. Brother Chu deserves it. You don't have to thank me. If it wasn't for your help, I wouldn't be where I am today. How's your progress? Did you find the other heart techniques? Chu Li frowned. I found the tiger taming technique. The other two are incomplete, including the dragon taming technique from Goddess Attraction Mountain. He trusted Fa Yuan very much. He was kind-hearted and would not lie to anyone. Fa Yuan asked, Brother Chu, you've obtained the black tortoise power? Chu Li nodded. Fa Yuan smiled. I thought Brother Chu would ask for it with great fanfare. I didn't expect you to get it so quietly. It's a coincidence. I was lucky. Chu Li smiled. If it wasn't for the vitality-devouring turtle, he would have to force himself to get the black tortoise power. Black Tortoise Mountain teaches one level at a time. After mastering it, it's passed down to the next level. Brother Chu is not an outsider, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li looked at the middle-aged monk with a smile. Xing Yin hesitated before nodding. One heart of Azura is missing. Fa Yuan was shocked. Missing one? Did someone invade the demon suppression tower? Did a celestial do it? As he spoke, his face darkened. The enlightened god field spread out naturally. Monk Xing Yin's face paled and he stepped back. Fa Yuan was shocked. He quickly retracted his enlightened god field and frowned. Why? Xing Yin sighed in relief. Strange. It disappeared without a trace. There was no sign of invasion. It was fine last night. We looked at it at night, but in the morning, one was missing. Chu Li's expression changed too. The heart of Azura was not a trivial item. One heart of Azura could resurrect an Azura. It was immortal and bloodthirsty. Who knew how many people it would kill? Fa Yuan asked, Who was guarding last night? Honorable Master Kong Wu and Honorable Master Kong Qing, Xing Yin sighed. Fa Yuan frowned in silence. He was confident in the two honorable masters' martial arts and character. They would not have done it privately. It was impossible for them to have invaded without a sound. So why did they suddenly disappear? Brother Chu, follow me to take a look, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li nodded. It's good to watch. The three of them left the monastery, passed through several rows of monasteries, and arrived at a towering pagoda. This pagoda wasn't as tall as the pagoda from before, but in terms of imposing aura, it was superior. It naturally revealed a dignified and open feeling, and it was no different from the concept of Buddhism. Chu Li exclaimed, This demon imprisonment tower lives up to its name. Fa Yuan nodded lightly and said, The Grand Masters in the temple chant the Buddhist scriptures every day to dispel the hostility in the heart of Azura in the pagoda. Unfortunately, the hostility in the heart of Azura is so strong that it is almost impossible to dispel. Chu Li said, It's better than nothing. I hope that the heart of Azura that escaped did not have such a strong evil energy. Fa Yuan shook his head. What a sin. If the heart of Azura were to escape and kill wantonly in order to grow, it would be the Tempest Temple's fault. They had died because of the Tempest Temple's negligence. Chu Li said, Can we find the heart of Azura? Although the Tempest Temple did not cultivate divine powers, they did not lack divine ability practitioners, especially the high monks who cultivated in literature. After the Buddha's light was perfected, divine powers would naturally appear. However, to the Tempest Temple, these divine powers were obstacles to the other side, and they had to let go. If they could not let go, it would be difficult to achieve perfection. They could not be freed, and it was completely different from the Titanium Temple's cultivation path. Fa Yuan said slowly, We should be able to find it, but I'm afraid it will be too late by the time we find it. Chu Li said, Then let's find it as soon as possible. The Honorable Masters and the others should have already started searching, but we still have to find out how it disappeared. Fa Yuan nodded. If we can't find the source, it is inevitable that something like this will happen again. When that time comes, the honorable masters will not be able to split themselves, and the world will be in chaos. The demon imprisonment tower suppressed 120 hearts of Azura, including the strongest heart of the Azura King. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.